Chapter 859. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. As Gu Jiao thought about this, she slowed down and fell slightly behind. She wasn't in a hurry to catch up. Instead, she looked up at him and the Black Wind King. There was no doubt that only the Xinyuan family could make the Black Wind King so excited. Therefore, regardless of whether he answered or not, Gu Jiao was so sure. As for who he was from the Xinyuan family, Gu Jiao had a vague guess in her heart, but she needed further confirmation. The Ghost King brought a person and a horse, or to be exact, the Black Wind King. Gu Jiao was just along the way. She was now the Black Wind King's little follower. After walking for a long time, they exited the forest and entered another forest. They even crossed a small stream and arrived at another mountain. Gu Jiao didn't understand where he wanted to take them, and she felt that he was going in circles. Gu Jiao voiced the doubt in her heart. "Where do you want to take us? Are we going to where you live? Tell me the direction, and I'll find it myself. I promise I won't go in circles." The Ghost King paused for a few seconds, probably thinking about how to say those words. Then he thought of something and said slowly, "Look at the scenery." He wanted to take little Yu to see the scenery behind the mountain. Gu Jiao was speechless. "Can we not see the scenery?" Objection overruled. Gu Jiao was sleepy, so she rode on the Black Wind King's horse and fell asleep. When she woke up, she found that she was no longer in the forest, but in a spacious cave. The walls of the cave were covered with night pearls, illuminating the whole cave. The Black Wind King silently guarded her. As for the Ghost King of the Xinyuan family, he wasn't there. Gu Jiao thought that he went to guard the graveyard again, so she stood up and went out to look for him. As soon as she reached the door, she saw him sitting outside the cave in the same posture as he did at the graveyard. Gu Jiao saw that there was no repulsive murderous aura around him, so she walked over and sat down beside him. The Black Wind King also walked out silently, looking as if he was going to keep an eye on his little brat so that he wouldn't be bullied by his old master. Gu Jiao asked, "Well, can I take your pulse?" "That's how polite you are when talking to big shots." "I'm a doctor," Gu Jiao said. He did not refuse. Gu Jiao took his arm and placed 3 fingers on his wrist to check his pulse. His pulse is very strange. Injuries were inevitable. However, it seemed that he was not just injured. There was a pulse in his body that was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. It was this pulse that allowed him to erupt with unfathomable strength. Gu Jiao pondered for a moment and said to him, "Your face is dirty. Let me wipe it for you." Then she took out a handkerchief and tentatively put it close to his face. Seeing that he did not refuse, she felt relieved and wiped all the dirt off his face. When the weathered face was completely exposed in front of Gu Jiao's guess was confirmed. "I saw your portrait in the library of the State Master's palace. You are..." Gu Jiao called out his name. Hey, wake up. Where is that guy?" In the small hut, Tang Yueshan was shaken awake by Shangguanqing. Tang Yueshan could understand a little of the language of the Yan Kingdom, but he could not speak it well. What? He asked in the language of the Zhao Kingdom. Shangguanqing switched to the language of the Zhao Kingdom in a second. "I ask you, where is your companion?" Who are you?" Tang Yueshan fainted when he entered the forest, and woke up just now. He had no idea what had happened, and did not realize that he had met someone who could speak the language of the Zhao Kingdom in the territory of the Yan Kingdom. "Alas, forget it." Shangguanqing sighed. "I'd better look for him myself. That guy probably went to the back of the mountain." Tang Yueshan looked at Shangguanqing's back and did not understand what he was talking about. "Hey, did you see my companion?" A guy in cyan with a red birthmark on the left side of his face. Shangguanqing waved his hand. "Maybe he went to the back of the mountain. I'm looking for him too." Hearing this, Tang Yueshan did not have time to sleep. He quickly sat up and followed Shangguanqing with his precious bow and arrow. The night wind blew, and Tang Yueshan woke up a little. They were in a small village in a valley, and the forest in front of them was the place where he and Gu Jiao were ambushed. "Little brother, may I ask what happened just now?" he asked politely. Shang Guanqing said, "You and your companion were saved by me. Unfortunately, your companion was not obedient. I told him not to go to the back of the mountain, but he sneaked there in the middle of the night." Tang Yueshan was relieved when he heard that Gu Jiao was fine. Sneaking to the back of the mountain was nothing. There was no place in the world that the girl did not dare to go. The more you told her not to go, the more she wanted to go. Next time, just tell her to go to the back of the mountain. She would be too lazy to go. Tang Yueshan complained in his mind. Suddenly, he thought of something and turned to Shang Guanqing, who was wearing a mask, and said, "Little brother, you speak the language of the Zhao kingdom well. Are you also from the Zhao kingdom?" Outside the cave, Gu Jiao fixed her eyes on his face. He looked a little different from the middle-aged man in the portrait. He had experienced many vicissitudes of life, but his outline and strength of character were the same as before. Gu Jiao called him again. Probably because he had not heard this name for many years, he was in a trance. After a long time, he murmured, "Xian Yuan Qi." Gu Jiao told him with certainty, "Yes, you are Xian Yuan Qi." "Dead," he said. Gu Jiao nodded. "That's right. Xian Yuan Qi is dead, but there is a second Lord of Shadow in the world." Dark shadow. Confusion appeared in his eyes for a moment. It seemed that he had been guarding the graveyard alone for too long. His mind was a little absent-minded. Although he did not lose his memory, many of his memories were faded and confused. Xianyuan Li was the Grand Marshal, and Xianyuan Qi was the Grand General. Both of them were unyielding men of the Xianyuan family. They were the existence that made Jin and Liang tremble with fear. It was really sad that he had fallen into this situation. Gu Jiao said softly, "It's okay. Think about it slowly." He really began to think about it carefully. During this time, Gu Jiao did not disturb him. Liachen had always believed that Long Yi had killed Xianyuan Qi, but in fact, Xianyuan Qi was not dead. Gu Jiao was very curious. What happened between Long Yi and Xianyuan Qi back then? Also, why did he believe that he was dead? Why was he not willing to let his corpse be buried in the ground? He closed his eyes and completely entered a state of selflessness. Gu Jiao waved her hand in front of his eyes. No reaction. "If I sneak attack you now, can I succeed?" As Gu Jiao said, she stretched out 2 fingers and poked at his eyes. He did not dodge in any way. Gu Jiao's fingers stopped an inch in front of his eyes in time. "You're right. Forget it, think about it. No one will come to the back of the mountain anyway." As soon as she finished speaking, there was a sneaky sound of footsteps on the path in front of them. Gu Jiao looked at Xianyuan Qi, who was meditating beside her, and motioned for the Black Wind King to stay here while she went over to take a look. This cave was remote. She had to pass through the narrow gap between the 2 cliffs in front of the open space, and push through a patch of bushes and thorns to reach the path outside. When Gu Jiao walked out, she coincidentally bumped into the person who came. Tang Yueshan was caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a figure, and his bow and arrow were fully drawn. Gu Jiao said, "It's me." Tang Yueshan was stunned and looked at Gu Jiao. "Ah, it's really you." "Fortunately, I reacted quickly, or I would have been exposed." "Ah, why are you so rough with your words? We're kindred spirits." Shang Guanqing withdrew his gaze from Tang Yueshan and walked quickly to Gu Jiao. "You didn't meet the old Ghost King, did you?" "Ah, what's with the blood on your face?" Gu Jiao said without changing her expression. "Oh, young man, I was too angry and had a nosebleed." She would never admit that she couldn't beat that guy. Without giving Shang Guanqing a chance to find a flaw, she continued, "Besides, I met the old Ghost King." Shang Guanqing didn't believe it and firmly believed that the young man in front of him was bragging. With this guy's skills, the old Ghost King would definitely regard him as an enemy and tear him apart. Shang Guanqing snorted. "Then tell me, where's the old Ghost King? We just went to the graveyard, but he wasn't there." Shang Guanqing had been to the back of the mountain several times, and every time he met the other party in the graveyard. Gu Jiao said mischievously, "So you haven't been to the old Ghost King's lair? Are you a close friend of the old Ghost King?" Shang Guanqing was poked in his sore spot and said angrily, "He invited me several times. I just didn't have the time to go." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. "Oh, Shang Guanqing." On the way here, Tang Yueshan had learned from Shang Guanqing that there was a very powerful guy living in the back of the mountain. There seemed to be something wrong with his brain, and he was very wary of martial arts practitioners. "I don't know who's more powerful, me or him. Forget it, it's not convenient to fight with the two young ones here." Tang Yueshan said, "Let's leave here first." Gu Jiao looked at the two of them and said, "You two go first, I have something to do." Tang Yueshan asked, "You're not going back to Tsuyang tomorrow morning?" "I might not be able to. Let's wait." Gu Jiao wasn't sure how long Xin Yuanqi would meditate, so she could only pause and say, "Let's wait a few days first." She had an unusually strong intuition that she couldn't leave the ghost mountain, or she would never see Xin Yuanqi again and miss the answer she wanted forever. Shang Guanqing looked at Gu Jiao suspiciously. "You're not really going to see the old Ghost King, are you?" Gu Jiao said, "You don't have to worry about me. But on your side, Jie Xingzhou and the assassins of the Sword Hut have gone back. Based on my understanding of Gong Sunyu, he won't let it go. Early tomorrow morning, the Jin army will enter the mountain to suppress the bandits." Shang Guanqing snorted and said, "Don't worry, I have a plan." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_8964/105558964. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 860. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. More novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet here. What will come will come. It's useless to be afraid. From the first day they entered the Ghost Mountain, they knew that the war outside would spread here one day. They were not afraid of fighting. They would rather die than become the dogs of the Jin state. Shang Guanqing and Tang Yueshan returned to the village first. Gu Jiao went to guard Xian Yuanqi at the entrance of the cave. He had protected others for most of his life. This was probably the first time someone had protected him silently. Gu Jiao sat cross-legged next to him. She looked at him deeply and said softly, "You must remember soon, Xian Yuanqi." Tang Yueshan didn't go back to sleep after he returned. He stood at the entrance of the village with a big bow on his back, staring in the direction of the forest. When the sky was misty, a ghost soldier quickly came out of the forest and reported to Shang Guanqing, "The Jin state has sent out their troops. They're coming toward the Ghost Mountain." Shang Guanqing asked, "How many troops did they send?" The ghost soldier opened his mouth and said reluctantly, 20,000. Shang Guanqing put his hands behind his back and frowned. Obviously, this number was beyond his expectation. Gongsun, you had sent 20,000 regular troops to deal with the 300 bandits in the Ghost Mountain. He really thought highly of the Ghost Mountain. Tell them not to light any fires in the morning. Do everything according to the plan, Shang Guanqing ordered. Yes. The ghost soldier quickly returned to the forest after receiving the order. Tang Yueshan entered his room and asked, "Is the Jin State Army coming?" Shang Guanqing nodded. He didn't look as calm as last night. 20,000 troops, he said. Tang Yueshan's eyes trembled. What? 20,000? Is Gong Sunyu crazy? He sent 20,000 troops to deal with the Ghost Mountain. Shang Guanqing said. Gong Sun Yu's grandfather was buried in the Ghost Mountain. Maybe he has an unusual anger toward the Ghost Mountain. But you're right. He's crazy. Tang Yueshan asked, Is there a retreat route? What's behind the mountain? Shang Guanqing said seriously, It's a lake, a boundless lake. That meant that there was no way to withdraw. Tang Yueshan asked again, What about the east and west? Shang Guanqing said, There's a lake after climbing over the mountain. There aren't enough boats in the village. Tang Yueshan sensed that the situation was not good. Then, Shang Guanqing's expression suddenly relaxed. Don't worry too much. Ghost Mountain is not as weak as you think. Although 20,000 Jin soldiers are troublesome, they can still hide from them. We will be safe when the Imperial Court's forces come to take back Puqing City. Tang Yueshan looked at him strangely. Half an hour later, Tang Yueshan realized that he was serious about hiding. He hit the stone bell at the entrance of the village 3 times. After a short while, the villagers came out of their houses one after another. They were all ready to go. Tang Yueshan's jaw dropped. Seriously? So fast? Shang Guanqing enjoyed Tang Yueshan's expression package very much. He raised his eyebrows and said, I packed it up last night. Otherwise, why would the villagers not sleep when it was so late at night? Were they doing farm work? The moment the Jin army entered the mountain, he immediately started the emergency plan. Although it was a few days earlier than expected, it was not a big deal. Tang Yueshan said, I'll go to the front. Shang Guanqing said, No, you're responsible for protecting the villagers. The ghost soldiers in front will withdraw soon. Ghost Mountain was not the home field during the day. Shang Guanqing would not make unnecessary sacrifices if he could not win. Tang Yueshan looked at Shang Guanqing in surprise. The boy had a charisma that made people trust him. He was so young, but he was calm, courageous, and resourceful, but not radical. Was it an illusion? Why did he suddenly think of old Xiao? There was a mechanism in the ancient well in the village. After it was opened, there would be a hole in the wall of the well. Shang Guanqing arranged 2 ghost soldiers who were familiar with the secret passage to take the lead, and then evacuated the villagers into the passage one by one. What shocked Tang Yueshan the most was that no one, from old man Kui Kui to the 3-year-old children, cried out in fear, nor did they show any signs of panic. Everyone obeyed Shang Guanqing's arrangement. This was an unreserved trust. He thought of Marquis Xianping again. Although Marquis Xianping looked frivolous, wherever he went, the hearts of the people were stirred up. He used to blame it on Marquis Xianping's face, but this boy did not show his face at all. Shang Guanqing looked back and interrupted his thoughts. It's your turn, Marshal Tang. Tang Yueshan was shocked. Wait, I didn't say I was the marshal. I only said my surname was Tang. Could it be that the last said it? Yes, it must be. This boy can't know me. Tang Yueshan and Shang Guanqing also entered the passage in the ancient well. The entrance looked small, but it was not narrow. Tang Yueshan, who was middle-aged and fat, could crawl in it without feeling crowded. After crawling for 10 feet, the passage became higher and wider, and he could walk with his body bent. Are the ghost soldiers still behind? Tang Yueshan asked. Shang Guanqing bent forward and walked in front. Yes, they'll be here soon. Tang Yueshan asked. Then? Shang Guanqing said, Then this passage will be sealed. This actually meant that they had given up on the village. But as long as they were alive, there was hope for them to rebuild their home. They walked underground for a long time. The passage became wider and wider as they walked. In the end, they could even walk upright. The candlesticks on the walls of the passage had been lit, and the light reflected on everyone's faces. Tang Yueshan followed at a moderate pace. He thought of something and asked, By the way, there was a passage in the forest where the battle took place yesterday, right? What if the Jin army found it? Shang Guanqing paused and sighed. Then it would be terrible. Jie Xingzhou led 20,000 soldiers into the Ghost Mountain, accompanied by Elder Lu of the Sword Hut and 2 disciples who were good at martial arts. Jie Xingzhou and his team rode horses, while the others walked. It was not that they were reluctant to send cavalry, but the terrain of the Ghost Mountain was not suitable for cavalry. You didn't find anything after searching for a long time? Jie Xingzhou asked. Elder Lu, are you sure that the battle took place in this forest last night? Elder Lu said indifferently, I'm sure, and there must be traps and arrays in this forest. Jie Xingzhou said, but we have searched for 2 hours and found nothing. General, a soldier lying on the ground suddenly shouted, we found a passage here. Jie Xingzhou hurried over. When he reached the entrance of the passage, the soldier had already gone down. Not long after, the soldier came up with dust all over his face. He picked up a skeleton claw and said, there are passages down here leading to different places. They must have been playing tricks down here. Jie Xingzhou ordered his 2 deputies, take some people down there and search. Yes, considering that the ghost soldiers were sinister and cunning, and that they could easily destroy Min Hongyi's 500 soldiers with only 300 soldiers, they took a lot of people down there. They made a major discovery in the passage. The skeletons that broke out of the ground, the bleeding trees, and the corpses of birds turned out to be traps inside. A bunch of guys playing tricks. Jie Xingzhou said indifferently, it seems that it will be over soon. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a terrible explosion underground. The ground shook, and then there were screams coming from the passage one after another. Jie Xingzhou's face changed. What happened? Answer me. Only screams answered him. So it's really tragic. Shang Guanqing said, once the self-destruction mechanism is activated, no one will be left alive, and it will cut off the passage to the village forever. Wow! Tang Yueshan was secretly amazed. What was the saying? Reading 10,000 books was not as good as traveling 10,000 miles. This trip to the Yen Kingdom had broadened his horizons. It turned out that a war could be fought in this way. Tang Yueshan sincerely admired him. How did you think of digging so many tunnels and set up such ingenious traps? Shang Guanqing said, it's not me. When I came to Ghost Mountain, there were already underground passages. I just figured out how to use those traps. According to the booklet stolen from the old Ghost King. He couldn't say this, otherwise how could he show off? The last ghost soldier also entered the passage, and the entrance of the well was completely blocked by the trap boulder. They walked for a while, and came to a natural underground cave. The cave was big and long, and there was a stream gurgling through it. The villagers and ghost soldiers sat on the ground together. There was an inexhaustible water source here, and everyone had prepared enough dry food. It was not a problem to hide for a month. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Tang Yueshan wouldn't have believed that there was such a marvelous project in the world. What kind of god dug this? Why did he dig it? Tang Yueshan asked. Will the Jin army dig 3 feet underground? No, Shang Guanqing said. Shang Guanqing said, I put a boat on the lake of Dongshan Mountain and made some traces of our escape on the shore. They should think that we left by boat overnight. No wonder you told everyone not to make a fire in the morning. If they made a fire in the morning, the Jin army would know that they were still there last night. Then the boat on the lake couldn't have gone far. But if they escaped overnight, it was not strange that they couldn't see the boat on the lake. The little Ghost King's plan was really flawless. Old Xiao, I found a guy as cunning as you. When I take him back and take him as my godson, let's see if you can still show off in front of me in the future. Tang Yueshan said again, the back of the mountain. Shang Guanqing said, you've been there yourself. The Ghost King's lair is very hidden. The Jin army can't find it. That was true. Then the next step was to wait in the cave. They would wait for the Jin army to leave voluntarily, or the imperial court to attack and force them to leave. The latter was more likely. Old Xiao, we are trapped in Ghost Mountain. You must come quickly. Digression, third watch. Please give me a wave of monthly votes. Moi, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www. ZHHBQG. com/8964-2_89642826/105558785. HTML Genius memorized the website address www.zhhbqg.com. Bikuga mobile version reading website zhhbqg.com. Chapter 861. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. After losing hundreds of men in the forest, Jie Xingzhou's expression became ugly. If it was said that he was following orders to suppress the bandits earlier and not to avenge Min Hongi, then right now, he really wanted to ferret out those cunning fellows and kill them one by one. Daring to fool him, Jie Xingzhou, they were really tired of living. Later on, he increased his guard and brought in soldiers from the city who were proficient in divination. The 8 trigrams formation in the forest was broken, and the army finally passed through this dangerous area and came to the entrance of the village. A small stream connected the valley to the village, and the wooden bridge above it had been cut off. However, the river was not wide, and it was not a problem to build a temporary wooden bridge. "I'll have to trouble Elder Lu," Jie Xingzhou said. Elder Lu sat on the horse and turned his head, gesturing to the 2 disciples behind him. The 2 disciples understood and pulled out their swords from their waists. Then they chopped down the 2 big trees at lightning speed and split them in half. Jie Xingzhou's deputy general called over a few capable soldiers and used ropes to tie the wood together. The curved parts were embedded in the mud, and spears were used to fix the 2 sides to prevent the wooden bridge from flipping over. This process only took half an hour and could be said to be extremely fast. The Jin Army's war horses could not cross such an unreliable, dangerous bridge, and could not cross it like the Black Wind King. Jie Xingzhou and his men could only dismount and walk across the bridge. A deputy general said, "I heard that the Yin country's Black Wind cavalry is very strong. Once we beat them, I'll capture the Black Wind King and give it to General Jie." Jie Xingzhou did not reply, but he was a little tempted. The Black Wind cavalry was the strongest cavalry of the 6 countries. Other than the cavalry's combat skills, their war horses were 1 in 10,000. Especially the Black Wind King. They were simply war gods among horses. When he was young, he once had the opportunity to witness Xian Yuan Li's Black Wind King. He was so scared that he couldn't sleep for 3 days. Even now, when he thought about it, his heart still palpitated. Of course, he wouldn't be frightened by a horse anymore. But if he could conquer such a war god horse, it wouldn't be a disgrace to his reputation as a valiant general. "I wonder if my lord is interested in the Black Wind King. If she is, then there's basically no chance for me." In just an instant, Jie Xingzhou had already planned the fate of the Black Wind King in his mind. The Jin army entered the village. The deputy general sighed. "This village is not small. It can accommodate a few hundred people." He ordered his subordinates, "You guys, search every house." Yes. The soldiers accepted the order and split into 2 teams. One team searched for the villagers' residence, while the other searched for the ghost soldiers' camp. The result was disappointing. Other than finding a few wild boars that they couldn't take away, they didn't even see a shadow of a person. "Escaped?" Jie Xingzhou frowned. He called over the 2 spies who stayed behind last night and asked, "Did you find anything last night?" The first spy reported, replying to the general, "The 2 of us were lying in ambush at the entrance of Ghost Mountain last night. We confirmed that no one came out of Ghost Mountain." Jie Xingzhou randomly entered a kitchen and reached his hand into the stove to feel it. It was cold. He ordered, "Check the other stoves." Yes. The soldiers checked one by one. None of the stoves had any temperature. With the current weather, if a fire was lit in the morning, the stove would still have some residual heat. Suddenly, another soldier walked over quickly. He cupped his fists and saluted. "General, there's a discovery on the eastern mountain." Jie Xingzhou brought his subordinates to the location the deputy general mentioned. The Green Mountains were surrounded by sparkling water. The lake stretched as far as the eye could see. Ghost Mountain was surrounded by water on 3 sides. There was only one entrance, which was the southern mountain. At this moment, on the shore of the eastern mountain, everyone found a large number of footprints and traces of ships that had docked there. There were even some scattered items, such as shoes and purses. There was also a small boat on the shore. The bottom of the boat was leaking. Judging from the new cut on the wooden planks, it was newly left behind. Combined with the evidence that there was no fire in the stove in the morning, everyone could not help but imagine the scene of the villagers escaping in the night. It was dark, they could not see the road, dropped things all over the ground, and even accidentally damaged the small boat. Everything was reasonable. There was no other explanation. If Min Hongyi was here, he would definitely lead the army to the other side of the lake to catch the villagers. However, Jie Xingzhou was not so simple. Zhongcheng, he called his deputy general. Where is the other side of the lake? I have not been there either, Zhongcheng said. He was a spy planted in Pu City by the Jin Kingdom. He was very familiar with the terrain of Pu City, except for Ghost Mountain, which was like a forbidden area. Jie Xingzhou said, repair the boat and send 2 people who know how to swim over to look for them. Yes. Regarding Jie Xingzhou's decision, Shang Guanqing had already predicted it. Shang Guanqing was not worried at all. This was because there was only a small boat here. It could only seat 2 to 3 people at most. The lake was very big. There were green mountains on both sides of the lake. At the end of the green mountains, there was a very steep waterfall. Those who had not been there would not be able to return. Of course, with Jie Xingzhou's intelligence, he would not only make one plan. As expected, Jie Xingzhou immediately instructed the remaining deputy general. You guys have to look around. You have to search every mountain. Pay attention to the hidden caves and entrances. Don't miss any clues. Everyone received the order and dispersed. Gu Jiao sat at the entrance of the cave. She already knew that the Jin army had entered the mountain. She also heard the sounds of Shang Guanqing leading the villagers to leave. At this moment, the Jin army was wantonly searching. She did not know if they would find any clues. 2 Jin soldiers pushed aside the bushes outside the crevice. From the outside, it looked like no one could enter the crevice. The 2 took out their swords and poked inside. Then they left in disappointment. Wave after wave of Jin soldiers came, but they did not find the cave behind the crevice. There were trees and grass outside the cave. There was food and water inside the cave. There was no need to worry about starving. Gu Jiao glanced at Xian Yuanqi, who was still in a meditative state. Then, she continued to meditate and protect him. The Jin army's search lasted until evening. They had almost searched the entire Ghost Mountain, but still found nothing. In a large cave with a gurgling stream, 300 ghost soldiers were stationed beside the stream. Behind them were more than 500 villagers from the village. A few ghost soldiers who had returned from the various passages reported the situation on the ground to Shang Guanqing. They seemed to have stopped searching. But Jie Xingzhou did not immediately give the order to retreat. He seems to be waiting for the Jin army who went to search the lake to return. Those 2 Jin soldiers were most likely killed. He won't be able to wait. Shang Guanqing nodded. If he can't wait, he only has 2 guesses. One is that they met with an accident. The other is that they were killed by us. Jie Xingzhou may guess the latter. There are no other boats here. He has to go to the city to transport them. Plus, he has to search the lake and the shore. This can delay him for a few more days. Then he turned around and looked at the nervous villagers sitting on the ground. He said, "Don't be afraid. We are very safe now. If they can't find us, they will naturally believe that we have successfully moved." Then what? A villager asked. Then, the imperial court's army will attack us. It was Tang Yueshan who spoke. He walked forward and said to the villagers, whose eyes were full of hope, "Today, the imperial court's army is attacking the Liang army. After that, they will come to Puching to deal with the Jin army. Shang Guanqing translated. Everyone thought it was a dialect. Shi did not think much about it. The villager said excitedly, "So we will all be saved?" Tang Yueshan said, "Of course. The imperial court's army will arrive in, at most, 5 days. Attacking the Liang army, capturing the Nangong family, and taking back the new city. With old Zhao's speed, 5 days was enough. Old Zhao's daughter-in-law was still here. If they did not arrive in 5 days, old Zhao would definitely guess that he and the girl were in trouble. He would definitely speed up the attack on Puching." Shang Guanqing repeated his words in the language of the Yan kingdom. "How do you know?" another villager asked. Tang Yueshan opened his mouth, thinking about how to explain his identity. Shang Guanqing put his hands behind his back and said calmly, "He is Marshal Tang, who was sent by the imperial court." Everyone present was from the border and did not know much about the high-ranking officials of the imperial court. However, when they heard that it was the marshal, they immediately believed his words and rekindled their hope. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. They all put their hearts back into their stomachs. Tang Yueshan said softly, "Isn't it a little bit?" Shang Guanqing raised his eyebrows and said, "I didn't say which marshal or which imperial court he is." Tang Yueshan was speechless. He wanted to say something, but suddenly noticed the movement above. He hurriedly put his finger to his lips and gestured for silence. The villagers were very cooperative. Even little Ing, who was more than a year old, covered her mouth with her little hand under her brother's signal. Little Ing was obedient. Little Ing did not speak. The cave suddenly became silent. "Okay, let's camp here tonight." They heard the voice of the Jin army. The border trade of Puching was developed. Before the outbreak of the war, there were many shops opened by the merchants of the Jin kingdom in the city. Basically, the people here could speak both the Jin kingdom and the Yan kingdom. The Jin army actually camped above them. It was a lucky hit. Shang Guanqing gestured and said, "Don't worry. Just keep quiet." Everyone nodded. It happened that it was late now. They should sleep. When they woke up, the Jin army should have left. "Don't sleep if you snore," Shang Guanqing whispered. Tang Yueshan just laid down with his bow, and then sat up with a dark face. At night, everyone on the ground and underground fell asleep. Ghost Mountain fell into silence. Tang Yueshan did not dare to sleep too deeply. He found an open space with his bow and sat down. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes from time to time. In the middle of the night, he heard an unusual sound. It seemed to be a painful groan. He frowned and looked in the direction of the sound. With the light of the luminous pearls on the wall, he saw that it was a pregnant woman with a big belly who was groaning in pain. Tang Yueshan remembered that she was the mother of the little girl, Little Ing. Her husband was killed by the Jin army in Puching. She was rescued by Shang Guanqing and brought back to Ghost Mountain with her son and daughter. The ghost soldiers on duty were patrolling somewhere else. Tang Yueshan was the only one awake at the moment. Tang Yueshan looked at her in confusion. He did not understand what had happened to her. The next second, Tang Yueshan saw that she took out a dagger and cut her own neck with her teeth clenched. Tang Yueshan's heart skipped a beat. He flashed over and grabbed her wrist. He lowered his voice and asked, "What are you doing?" The moment she took out the dagger, he almost thought that she was a spy. Who knew that she was going to commit suicide? The woman's surname was Zhang. She was soaked in cold sweat, and her face was pale. Tang Yueshan vaguely realized something. He looked at her painful expression and her bulging belly. You're not going to give birth, are you? What's going on?" Shang Guanqing woke up from his sleep and walked over. He looked at the water stains under the woman's dress and frowned. He said calmly, "The water broke. The baby is going to be born." Mrs. Zhang was only 8 months pregnant. It was not the expected date. Maybe it was because of too much pressure that she gave birth prematurely. Mrs. Zhang endured a wave of terrible pain. She choked with tears in her eyes. "I can't give birth. I can't." Jean Jun was on the ground. Once her child was born, The cries would expose everyone's hiding place. She cried in pain and despair. I'll die. Little Ing will die. Little Hui will die. You will all die. She couldn't ruin the lives of her children and the whole village just because of a baby in her belly. Shang Guanqing looked at little Ing, who was snoring next to her. He looked back at the sleeping villagers and made a decision in his heart. He said seriously, I'll take you to another place to give birth. You have to bear with it. Mrs. Zhang choked. Won't we be exposed? Shang Guanqing said, many premature babies don't cry loudly. If we go further away, we may not be discovered. If it really comes to that point, I'll kill him myself. Tang Yueshan was shocked. He actually understood. He looked at Shang Guanqing in disbelief. He couldn't believe that this child could say such words. For him, cruelty was a more difficult choice than kindness. But if he didn't do it, thousands of people would lose their lives. Compared with letting Mrs. Zhang's hands be stained with the child's blood, he would rather do it himself and let himself bear this shadow for the rest of his life. Mrs. Zhang nodded with tears in her eyes. Shang Guanqing woke up an old woman in the village and called a few ghost soldiers. He ordered them to do something. The ghost soldiers found an emergency stretcher in the cave and carried Mrs. Zhang away. Shang Guanqing woke up an old woman and asked her to help take care of Mrs. Zhang's children, lest they feel uneasy and scared when they woke up and found that their mother was gone. What happened? The old woman asked. The villagers woke up one after another. Because they were trapped in a cave, everyone's mental state was extremely tense. Even the slightest movement of the wind would cause them to be extremely afraid. Shang Guanqing stood under the cold pearl light and said calmly, I'll take care of it. Go to sleep. He exuded an aura that made people believe in him. They didn't ask any more questions. They nodded and went to sleep obediently. Tang Yueshan went with him to the place where Mrs. Zhang gave birth. It was a small cave at least 100 feet away from here. It was originally used for storage. Mrs. Zhang was lying flat on the ground on a stretcher. The old woman was not a midwife. Compared to men, she had more experience in childbirth. She accompanied Mrs. Zhang to give birth inside, while Shang Guanqing and others all stayed outside the cave. Do you have any wood? The old woman came out and asked. How big do you want? Shang Guanqing asked. The old woman said, it doesn't need to be too big. Let her bite it in her mouth, so that she won't make too much noise and hurt herself. Shang Guanqing pulled out the cork on the water bag. Is this okay? The old woman shook her head. No. What about this? Shang Guanqing pulled out the wooden hairpin on his head. The old woman shook her head again. No. Shang Guanqing hesitated for a moment, then took out a very old wooden dagger from his arms and handed it to the old woman. The old woman smiled. This should be enough. Then she turned around and went into the small cave with the dagger. Tang Yueshan noticed that Shang Guanqing's expression showed a moment of disappointment. Was the small wooden dagger something very precious? But it didn't look precious. If he liked it, he could carve 10 or 8 daggers for him when he became his godson. Mrs. Zhang's labor pains began during the day. At this time, her uterus was completely open, but she still couldn't give birth. Oh, I'm afraid it's not good. The old woman came out anxiously and said to Shang Guanqing, Mrs. Zhang is having a difficult labor. Women had to go through the gates of hell to give birth. Once they had a difficult labor, it was very likely that both the mother and the baby would die. Tang Yueshan punched himself in the palm of his hand and muttered, If only that girl was here. What's wrong? A familiar young man's voice suddenly appeared at the other end of the passage. The 2 ghost soldiers quickly became alert. It's me, Gu Jiao said. Shang Guanqing waved his hand, and the 2 ghost soldiers stepped aside. Gu Jiao pushed open a secret door and climbed out. She patted the dust off her body and whispered, It's hard to find here. Shang Guanqing looked at her suspiciously. Did you come from the back mountain? Gu Jiao said. Where else could I come from? From the camp of the Jin army? Shang Guanqing couldn't hide his surprise. There's a tunnel in the back mountain, and it's connected here? What? You don't know? Well, she just found out. She was bored and strolled around Shenyuan Chi's cave residence. Then she accidentally touched a mechanism and fell into a tunnel. She wanted to walk back, but she didn't expect to meet them after walking around. Tang Yueshan grabbed her wrist and walked over. You came at the right time. A woman is having a difficult labor. Go in and have a look. Is she a virgin or a menstruating woman? After asking, Gu Jiao saw the two people's confused faces. She said, Oh, has she given birth before? She had 2 children, Shang Guanqing said. Gu Jiao asked, When did it happen? Shang Guanqing said, I don't know the details. She has been enduring it. Okay, I see. Gu Jiao entered the small cave where Mrs. Zhang gave birth. Mrs. Zhang's face was pale, and she was biting a small wooden dagger. There was no dry spot on her body, and even the stretcher under her was soaked with sweat. Do you feel like you're going to go to the toilet? Gu Jiao asked. She nodded with difficulty. Gu Jiao checked her. The cervix was open, but the fetus was not in the right position. It was not ready for a cesarean section. Fortunately, her amniotic fluid was not broken, and the fetus could still swim in the womb. The orthodontic surgery that she stole from the old traditional Chinese medicine doctor in her previous life should come in handy. I hope it's useful for you. Time ticked by. Shang Guanqing and Tang Yueshan were guarding outside the cave. They looked calm, but their palms were sweating. Tang Yueshan never dreamed that he would one day be guarding a woman to deliver a baby. What was going on? He paced up and down in the tunnel, talking to himself in a low voice. It's been a long time. Could it be that she can't give birth? No, that girl's medical skills are so good. Why didn't I know that giving birth is so dangerous? Sister-in-law has worked hard giving birth. I'll make it up to her when I go back. With Mrs. Zhang's last groan, a baby with bruises all over his body fell to the ground. It was a baby boy. Although he was less than a month old, he was not small. Why is there no crying? Mrs. Zhang looked weakly at the baby in Gu Jiao's arms. Gu Jiao grabbed the little boy's feet, lifted him up, and spanked his little, but a few times. The little boy finally moved. He clenched his little fists, opened his little mouth, and cried. His crying was so loud that it made Shang Guanqing and Tang Yueshan's hair stand on end. What happened to the premature baby? Even a full-term baby wouldn't cry as loud as him, right? In the tent on the ground, Jie Xingzhou and Elder Lu opened their eyes almost at the same time. Both of them had good hearing, but they were not sure if they had heard wrongly. The two of them walked out of their respective tents. When Jie Xingzhou saw Elder Lu, he was half sure. Did you? Elder Lu nodded. I thought I heard wrongly. It seems that General Jie heard it too. Jie Xingzhou chuckled. It's not a ghost crying in the middle of the night, is it? Elder Lu said indifferently. If General Jie believes in ghosts, I have nothing to say. Jie Xingzhou said coldly. Even if there is a ghost, I will find the crying little ghost. Elder Lu said, the sound seems to be coming from underground. The two of them lay down and put their ears to the ground. At this moment, lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a clap of thunder. Wah! The baby's crying was perfectly covered by the thunder. The two of them stood up. Jie Xingzhou asked, Elder Lu, what do you think? Elder Lu said with amusement, the commander of this operation is General Jie. I will listen to General Jie's orders. Jie Xingzhou looked up at the lightning that was jumping on the dome like a dragon, smiled, and said, they are really lucky. No, we are really lucky. A confident smile appeared on Elder Lu's face. Although the thunder is dense and covers the baby's cries, we can be sure that there are people underground. We just need to dig 3 feet underground, and we will definitely dig them out. Underground. Madame Zhang had fainted from exhaustion. Gu Jiao hugged the crying little guy and stuffed his thumb into his own mouth. He didn't even suck twice before he fell asleep. The people in the passage heaved a sigh of relief. Tang Yueshan asked with the last hope. The first sound was not covered by the thunder just now. We shouldn't be so unlucky to be discovered, right? Shang Guanqing sent the ghost soldiers to investigate the situation. The information he got was that the Jin army on the ground had all been awakened by Jie. It seems that they have discovered us and are preparing to dig the ground. But they don't seem to be sure of our specific location. They started digging in the village. The ghost soldiers reported. Tang Yueshan guessed it from his expression. He closed his eyes. As expected, there was no such thing as luck on the battlefield. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. Shang Guanqing clenched his fists. Tang Yueshan knew what he was thinking. He patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. It's not your fault. This place is actually very hidden. Ordinary crying can't be heard. These were not comforting words. He remembered that when Tang Ming was born, he was strong, but his crying was not as loud as this baby. His baby was comparable to Tang Ming's baby. Seeing that Shang Guanqing did not speak, he asked, "Do you really want to kill this baby?" Shang Guanqing looked at the baby in Gu Jiao's arms. He slowly loosened his clenched fists and sighed. "We've been exposed. Killing him won't help." Gu Jiao asked Shang Guanqing, "How long can you hold him off?" Shang Guanqing took a deep look at Gu Jiao and asked, "What do you want to do?" Gu Jiao lowered her head and took the baby's finger out of his mouth. She said, "He will still cry when he wakes up. When the thunder stops, the Jin army can easily find your location. I'll take him away." Shang Guanqing said, "Where are we going? The Ghost King's lair? We'll be exposed." Gu Jiao said, "No, back to Tuyang." Shang Guanqing was shocked. Gu Jiao said calmly, "I'll go back to Tuyang to get reinforcements. Give me 2 days. The Black Wind Cavalry and the Imperial Army will arrive at the city. This would be the final battle. It's useless." Shang Guanqing turned around. "Even if you get out of Ghost Mountain, you can't get out of Puqing. It was easy to enter Puqing, but difficult to get out. Moreover, the checkpoint at the city gate must be stricter if they wanted to catch people from Ghost Mountain. Even if he did it himself, he might not be able to successfully send them out of the city." Gu Jiao said, "We'll know if we can get out or not. Besides, you guard Ghost Mountain. I'll find a way to get out of the city. You just need to tell me which passage leads out of Ghost Mountain." In her dictionary, there was no such thing as retreating. Shang Guanqing asked, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's dangerous." She was not afraid of danger, but she thought of Xian Yuan Qi. At this moment, she still had a strong intuition that if she left here, she might never see him again. Those secrets would also be sealed forever. 1,000 lives and the truth she wanted to find out. Without any hesitation, she made a choice in her heart. Digression, Xian Yuan Qi. I heard that you want to leave me behind. Jiao Jiao, *, the battle was almost over. The chapter of Yen Kingdom was coming to an end. The latest chapter of this book was not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated faster. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that could not be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642826/1055364990. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 862. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Madame Zhang did not expect that she would give birth prematurely. When she packed her luggage, she did not bring the baby's clothes. Gu Jiao had no choice but to find a clean set of clothes to wrap him up. Then, she used a cloth to wrap the child in front of her chest. Tang Yueshan wanted to share her burden, but he didn't dare to touch the newborn baby. He was afraid that his hands and feet were too clumsy, and he would accidentally break his thin little arm. He carried his big bow on his back, dozens of arrows in the quiver, and a long sword at his waist. Gu Jiao's weapon was the silver spear that Black Impermanence threw to her. Although it was not as good as her red tasseled spear, it felt good. The failure and success of this operation were 50-50. If the newborn baby followed them, he might be killed by the Jin army. But they had to do it for the lives of the 1,000 people underground. "Are you sure you don't need to bring more people?" Shang Guanqing asked. Gu Jiao said, "No, old Tang and I are enough. More people are not good for hiding." Tang Yueshan agreed. "Yes, and you don't have many people. You'd better stay to deal with the Jin army." Shang Guanqing didn't insist. Before leaving, Mrs. Zhang woke up. Gu Jiao gave the baby to her and asked her to feed him. After feeding the baby, Mrs. Zhang gave the baby to Gu Jiao with tears in her eyes. Shang Guanqing led the way, and 2 ghost soldiers covered the back. They walked in the winding passage. The deeper they went, the more Tang Yueshan was amazed by the magic of these underground passages. If there was such a siege in Yueqing city of the Zhao kingdom, the Chun kingdom's army would have been wiped out. There are few ghost soldiers, but the passage is like an underground maze. It's narrow and difficult to pass through. 20,000 soldiers can't come in at once. If they come in one by one, they will be easily defeated one by one. He muttered to himself. He was more confident about the survival of Shang Guanqing and the villagers. Of course, the Jin army was not weak. Every time a group of people died, they could figure out the rule of a passage. The longer it took, the more unfavorable it was for the ghost soldiers. "We have to let the imperial army of the Yen kingdom come as soon as possible." F***CK. I didn't even worry this much when I was fighting in Zhao country. Forget it. Everything was for his godson. We're here. Shang Guanqing stopped at the end of the tunnel. He held the oil lamp in his hand and shone it on the wall. Behind this wall is the tunnel that leads to the entrance of Ghost Mountain. After you leave, this tunnel will be destroyed and no one will be able to enter. Let me ask you one last time. Have you thought it through? Even if you were killed at the entrance of Ghost Mountain, I wouldn't be able to save you. I know, Gu Jiao said. Shang Guanqing carried the oil lamp, and the dim light fell on Gu Jiao's young and calm face. The red birthmark bloomed like a beautiful flower in the dark night. Shang Guanqing said, "Although we haven't known each other for long, you have a familiar aura." "Because we are family, little Days Qing." Gu Jiao said seriously, "Open the passage. I will get you out of here and take you to see your father, your mother, and your brother. You are everyone's savior, so please hold on, Shao Qing." Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan went out of the passage. There was a very slight sound of sand flowing from underground. It was the passage being filled up by the mechanism. Tang Yueshan and Gu Jiao came behind a big tree. They were dozens of steps away from Ghost Mountain. But the tricky thing was that there were hundreds of soldiers of Jin guarding there. They couldn't force their way in. They didn't ride the Black Wind cavalry and would be easily caught up by the cavalry of Jin army. Tang Yueshan made a gesture and said silently, "Let's go around them from behind." It was not yet dawn and it was dark all around. If they were careful, they could avoid it. The premise was that the little fellow didn't cry. Gu Jiao looked at the sleeping little fellow and nodded slightly. "Who is it?" A Jin army soldier turned his head and shouted. "It's a wild rabbit." His companion smiled and caught the wild rabbit. "We'll roast it later." Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan quietly walked behind the two. Ghost Mountain was high and it was very cold at night. More than half of the Jin army had gone to rest. Only a dozen soldiers were around the campfire, warming themselves while guarding the entrance. No one noticed that not far away, there were 2 silhouettes quietly passing by. Just as the 2 of them were about to walk out of the forest, Gu Jiao stopped in her tracks. "What's wrong?" Tang Yueshan asked her with his eyes. Gu Jiao said, "I think I stepped on something." Tang Yueshan was about to speak, but the next second, he also froze. He swallowed and continued to make eye contact. "I think I stepped on something too." The 2 of them raised their heads at the same time, only to see several rows of sharp knives hanging from the lush branches above their heads. The shiny tips of the knives were aimed at them. If they let go of their feet, it would rain knives from the sky. This was not an ordinary knife rain. It was made of silk and moved faster than arrows. Even an Hun would not be able to dodge it. It's over. It's over. This is what it means to die before the battle begins. Tang Yueshan said, "Is the Jin army that powerful?" Gu Jiao said, "I think it's Shangguanqing." This was supposed to be a way to deal with the Jin army. Unfortunately, she and Tang Yueshan were the ones who stepped on it. Tang Yueshan said, "What do we do now?" "Wait." Gu Jiao said, "Wait for the children to cry, and we'll be exposed. Or wait for the Jin army to patrol, and we'll still be exposed." Tang Yueshan was speechless. "Okay, I'm going to relieve myself." One of the Jin army soldiers stood up and stretched. He rubbed his hands and sighed. "It's so cold on the mountain." His companion teased him. "Lazy people poop a lot. Who else is going?" "Why? Are you afraid of ghosts?" "Aren't you?" Okay, let's go together." This time, it was completely over. With more than a dozen people coming together, there was no way they could hide anymore. Gu Jiao gripped her silver spear tightly. "Then let's fight our way out." Tang Yueshan said, "Grab someone to block the knives." Gu Jiao said, "Got it." More than 10 Jin army soldiers came into the forest. The two of them were ready to be exposed. They hoped that the Jin army would not shoot them. Instead, it would be better if they got closer. One of the Jin army soldiers, who was a little drunk, unbuckled his belt. He glanced at them and asked uncertainly, "Huh, is there someone over there?" They did not even care about their pants. They quickly took out the bows on their backs. Shoot. F***CK. They were really coming to kill them. Tang Yueshan's scalp went numb. How could they dodge? If they let go, they would be stabbed to death. If they did not, they would be shot into a sieve. In the nick of time, a ghostly shadow flashed over. It grabbed Gu Jiao with one hand and Tang Yueshan with the other. With a swoosh, it took them away from the spot. A rain of knives fell from the sky and cut the arrows in half. "Let's go and take a look," said one of the Jin army soldiers. They fastened their belts and came to the scene. When they looked carefully, they were all dumbfounded. There was no one on the ground. There was only a prey that had been stabbed. "What? It's just a stupid roe deer." One of the Jin army soldiers muttered. "It seems that it triggered the trap here." Another Jin army soldier said, "I told you that the forest is not safe. We should be careful in the future. Don't step on any traps." Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan were taken into an underground tunnel by the shadow that suddenly appeared. Gu Jiao had guessed who it was, but she still took out a torch and shone it. When she saw the old face, she felt a long-lost feeling in her heart. It was as if the person she had been waiting for finally appeared. "It's you," she said. "Who is he?" Tang Yueshan asked. Gu Jiao looked at the man in armor and said, "General of the Yan Kingdom, Xianyuan Qi." Xianyuan Qi. As a general, Tang Yueshan had naturally heard of the generals of the Xianyuan family. But the one he heard most was the head of the Xianyuan family, the war god of the Yan Kingdom, Xianyuan Li, and Xianyuan Li's eldest son, Xianyuan Cheng, who was known as the Little War God. He had not heard much about Xianyuan Qi. "Ah, I remember now. He is Xianyuan Li's younger brother. Didn't he die more than 30 years ago?" Tang Yueshan asked. "He faked his death," Gu Jiao said. Xianyuan Qi's eyes fell on Gu Jiao's face. He said slowly, "You know about me?" Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, "Well, how should I tell you? Do you know about Shangguanqing's background?" Xianyuan Qi looked confused. It seemed that he did not know. Then he must not know about Xiao Heng's existence. It was better to use the identity of Duke Angua. Gu Jiao said, "Duke Angua is my adoptive father. My name is Xiao Lulang." Xianyuan Qi corrected her and said, "You are a girl." This was not a woman's name. I almost forgot. When I fought with him, I revealed that I was a girl. Gu Jiao spread her hands helplessly and said, "Okay, my original name is Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang is my identity in the Yan Kingdom." This is the token of Dukanwa, and this is the token of the crown princess. Gu Jiao took out 2 tokens and handed them to him. Xian Yuanqi did not take the tokens. He just murmured the name in a daze. Gu Jiao. Tang Yueshan could understand a little, but it was not comprehensive. He looked at the 2 of them in confusion. He did not understand why Xian Yuanqi faked his death and why he was in the Ghost Mountain. Also, this girl knew him. Could it be that Xian Yuanqi was the Ghost King in the back mountain? Tang Yueshan thought, "Oh my God, this is too exciting. I want to leave the city." Gu Jiao said to Xian Yuanqi. "Wait for an hour," Xian Yuanqi said. Then he turned and walked away. Gu Jiao followed him. Tang Yueshan stroked the big bow on his back and quickly caught up with him. Gu Jiao did not expect that Xian Yuanqi would be brought back to the cave in the back mountain, which was commonly known as the Ghost King's lair. Tang Yueshan saw the Black Wind King in the lair, as well as the Black Wind Cavalry that he brought back from the forest. The Black Wind Cavalry was very happy to see Gu Jiao and rubbed its head against her. Gu Jiao also touched it. "Boss." Then the Black Wind King found a strange smell and sniffed in Gu Jiao's arms. "It's a newborn baby. I want to take him out of the city," Gu Jiao said to the Black Wind King. The Black Wind King sniffed and accepted the little guy's smell. After Xian Yuanqi returned to the cave, he went to the stone steps at the entrance of the cave and looked up at the endless night sky. His rusty armor reflected a cold light under the moonlight. Gu Jiao came to his side and sat down. She looked at him and said, "Have you remembered?" Since she had fallen off the horse, Gu Jiao decided to use her own voice. "Yes," Xian Yuanqi replied. "Not much." Gu Jiao nodded and asked, "Do you remember why you came to the Ghost Mountain?" "Waiting for someone," Xian Yuanqi said. "Is it the person who built the Ghost Mountain tunnel?" Gu Jiao asked. "Yes," Xian Yuanqi said. "Who could be so powerful? Who could build such a sophisticated and huge project?" Gu Jiao could not help but think of the First Lord of Shadows. But soon she shook her head. If that person was the Lord of Shadows, why didn't he come to see Xian Yuanqi for so many years? Gu Jiao felt that the First Lord of Shadows was probably no longer in this world. The little guy in her arms twitched. Gu Jiao patted him gently and said to Xian Yuanqi, "By the way, I saw your son, Xian Yuanzheng. He is now a monk, and his Buddhist name is Liaochen." Xian Yuanqi's empty eyes flickered. He's still alive. He did not doubt Gu Jiao's words. So both father and son thought the other was dead. Gu Jiao nodded and gave him an affirmative answer. "I met him in Zhao country. At that time, he was already Master Liaochen in the temple at the back of the mountain." Xian Yuanqi was already half a living dead. It was difficult for him to have any complicated emotions. But Gu Jiao still felt a little different from him. He said word by word, "It's good that he became a monk." He was not really a monk. It was just a disguise. When you and your father meet each other, he will tell you about it personally. Gu Jiao said he should be coming to the border soon. Liaochen secretly escorted little Jingkong. When little Jingkong safely entered Zhao country, he would leave for the west. He always thought that you died in the hands of Shi Tian. If he knew that you were still alive, he would be very happy. Gu Jiao said, paused, turned to look at him, and asked, "Do you remember what happened with Shi Tian back then?" The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964286/10551580. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 863. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. He hadn't heard this name for many years, but the memory of it didn't fade. Just a slight mention of it was like a piece of driftwood that had been pressed to the bottom of the water, finally breaking free from the big palm and rising to the surface. I once fought with him. That battle was the most thrilling battle in Xian Yuanqi's life. Shi Tian was clearly only a 13 or 14-year-old boy, but he showed more terrifying strength than Xian Yuanli. Xian Yuanqi only found out later that it was because he had been poisoned by purple grass poison. The poison stimulated his potential, but even so, his talent was unique in the world. Other than the First Lord of Shadows, Xian Yuanqi couldn't think of anyone else in the world who could defeat that boy. I lost, Xian Yuanqi said. So, you two still fought. Since you lost, how did you escape? Gu Jiao remembered that Shi Tian's mission was to kill the Lord of Shadows, and the Lord of Shadows at that time was Xian Yuanqi. Combined with the information she got from a boarder, Gu Jiao speculated that the goal of the Sword Hutback then should be to destroy the entire Shadow organization, including the State Preceptor Hall and Xian Yuan family that were under the protection of the Shadow organization. Shi Tian had no reason to let Xian Yuanqi go, unless he was also heavily injured. He stopped. Xian Yuanqi said. Gu Jiao was slightly surprised. Why? Xian Yuanqi mechanically and slowly shook his head. I don't know. He fell to the ground with serious injuries. Shi Tian's sword was at his throat, but the sword suddenly stopped moving forward. He looked at Shi Tian in surprise. His vision was already blurred by blood, and he couldn't see Shi Tian's expression. But he could feel that Shi Tian was looking at him, and Shi Tian's murderous aura faded little by little. In the end, Shi Tian didn't say a word, turned around and left. He left. This didn't conform to Shi Tian's style. In fact, whether it was Shi Tian in the past or Long Yi now, once he received an order, he would complete it at all costs. Gu Jiao rubbed his chin. It's so strange. You said that Shi Tian was looking at you. Did he see something on you that made him stop killing you? Xian Yuanqi, I don't know. Gu Jiao, do you have any special items on you? No. The only special item on Xian Yuanqi's body was the shadow token, but before the Sky Splitter made his move, he had already secretly handed the shadow token to Xian Yuanzhang. Gu Jiao really couldn't figure out why Shi Tian stopped for no reason. Gu Jiao originally thought that it was because both sides were injured that led to the situation later. Not long after Shi Tian fought with you, he lost his memories. He mistakenly entered the Xinyang princess residence and became a dragon shadow guard. I once wondered if it was you who beat Shi Tian until he lost his memories? I don't think so. Xian Yuanqi said, now you can. In other words, he didn't have this ability at that time, but Xian Yuanqi, who had become half a living dead in Ghost Mountain, had reached a realm that ordinary people couldn't reach. Gu Jiao, then what happened? After Shi Tian left, did you come to Ghost Mountain immediately? Xian Yuanqi, no. After that, he was chased by the Sword Hut for several years. After he finally faked his death as the second Lord of Shadows, he finally returned to the Yen Kingdom. However, what greeted him was the bad news that the Xian Yuan family had rebelled and was destroyed. Everyone was dead. His eldest brother was dead. His sister-in-law was dead. Cheng Er's brothers and Zi were also dead. The crown princess was deposed, and his sister, Empress Xian Yuan, was banished to the cold palace. He couldn't even contact any of the old subordinates of the Shadow Guards. He thought that they and Zheng had all been killed. Gu Jiao said, Xian Yuanzheng didn't return to the Yen Kingdom after you parted ways, but stayed in the Zhao Kingdom. The old subordinates of the Shadow Guards you mentioned might have gone to the Zhao Kingdom to look for him. Xian Yuanqi suddenly realized, no wonder I couldn't find them. Continue, Gu Jiao said. Xian Yuanqi didn't continue. After he returned to the Yen Kingdom, he saw that the Xian Yuan family had been severely damaged. He was greatly affected, and his old injuries hadn't healed yet, so he fell ill. He lost the will to live. When he was about to die, he heard that person's voice. Xianyuanqi, I need your help. Wait for me at Ghost Mountain. Help me do something. What is it? When the time is right, you will know. How do I know when the time is right? You will know. If the time isn't right, it will be a regret for all of us. At that time, he was having a high fever and was in a daze. He could only see a blurry shadow. If he hadn't found the token beside him on the ground when he woke up completely the next day, he would have thought that he was dreaming the night before. The person who had been missing for many years really reappeared. However, he disappeared again after giving him a task that he didn't have any clue about. Even so, he still pulled himself together and went to Ghost Mountain without hesitation. At first, Ghost Mountain wasn't the burial ground of the Xianyuan army. Instead, it was the place where they threw the corpses. He buried one corpse after another with his bare hands. At first, he thought that this was the task given to him by that person. Gradually, with the invasion of countless Liang and Jin armies and even some bandits, the graveyard was severely damaged. He felt that protecting this graveyard was his task. He looked at the endless graveyard all day long. He didn't know when, but he didn't remember that he was still alive. However, the longer he stayed, the more confused he became. What was his task? His life was coming to an end, but that person still hadn't come. His task still hadn't come. This was a secret between him and that person. He couldn't tell a third person. Therefore, Xianyuanqi didn't say this part. Gu Jiao saw that he was silent and didn't force him. Everyone had their own secrets. Besides, they had gained a lot tonight. Other than the mystery of Long Yi's amnesia, the rest of the truth had surfaced. Girl, how much longer do we have to wait? Tang Yueshan urged her at the entrance of the cave. Soon. Gu Jiao answered and turned to ask Xianyuanqi, what did you mean by asking us to wait for an hour? Xianyuanqi said, after an hour, the passage will open. It will lead directly to the outside of Ghost Mountain. Horses can go. Gu Jiao suddenly understood. I see. If they went directly out of Ghost Mountain, they could perfectly avoid the Jin army in the forest. It was indeed the best choice at the moment. Besides, horses could also go. With the speed of the Black Wind King, she could reach Cuyang faster. Gu Jiao paused and asked him, are you coming with us? Or do you want to stay in Ghost Mountain and wait for that person? Xianyuanqi didn't answer. Gu Jiao understood his choice. He lived for more than 10 years in the latter half of his life to wait for that person. He wouldn't leave easily. Gu Jiao said, take care. Girl, my knife holder is broken. Tang Yueshan walked over and handed the two halves of a leather knife holder to Gu Jiao. How did it break? Gu Jiao asked. Tang Yueshan's eyes flashed. I don't know. It just suddenly broke. He would never admit that he wanted to ride the Black Wind King secretly, but it was bitten by the Black Wind King. Gu Jiao took the knife holder over. She had a needle and thread in her first aid kit, but it was inconvenient for her to move with a child in her arms. She knocked the purse away, and the small notebook in the purse fell out. Xianyuanqi went to help her pick it up. He didn't mean to peek, but the small notebook was open. He inadvertently caught a glimpse of a few lines of words. I hate writing about policy in the month since I came to the Yen Kingdom. The runner-up of the archery competition will get 1,000 taels of gold. The monarch is so generous. I will work hard to get the second place. I really want to beat Muchuan to death. Put Han Yi in a sack. Give me the mysterious energy. These little notes, after coming to the Yen Kingdom, were all written in the language of the Yen Kingdom. Xianyuanqi paused in picking up the small notebook. Gu Jiao only thought that he was stuck in the armor and couldn't bend down. She didn't take it to heart. I'll do it myself. Gu Jiao picked up the small notebook and put it back in the purse. Then she sewed Tang Yueshan's knife holder stitch by stitch. Here. Tang Yueshan looked at the knife holder in his palm, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Girl, did you sew it wrong? Gu Jiao, oh. Yao taught her to sew the thread inside, but she hadn't done it for a long time after coming to the Yen Kingdom, so she forgot. Just use it. If you don't want to use it, just throw it away. It was impossible for her to sew it again. Tang Yueshan took the knife holder with a dark face. Gu Jiao stood up and said to Xin Yuanqi, "It's almost time, right? We should go." She then walked into the cave and asked, "Where's the passage?" Tang Yueshan caught up and asked in a low voice, "That Ghost King, won't he go with us?" Gu Jiao came to the Black Wind King and patted his horse's back. She answered, "He wants to stay in the Ghost Mountain." As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Jiao felt a terrible murderous aura coming from behind. She couldn't avoid it, or the Black Wind King would be hurt. She frowned and looked at the silver spear standing beside her. She grabbed it and blocked the opponent's attack. "Xian Yuanqi?" Gu Jiao looked at him in disbelief. Tang Yueshan was also confused. He looked at the two of them and asked, "What's going on? Why are you two fighting? Aren't you on the same side?" Xin Yuanqi's long sword pressed on Gu Jiao's silver spear. Gu Jiao felt an extremely strong pressure. Her arm began to ache, and she couldn't hold it anymore. She took off the cloth bag in her arms and threw it to Tang Yueshan. Catch! Tang Yueshan caught the baby in the swaddling clothes steadily. Gu Jiao added her other hand in time, but she was still trembling under Xian Yuanqi's pressure. Her right knee bent, and she almost knelt to Xian Yuanqi. "I won't kneel to you." Gu Jiao gritted her teeth and forced herself to pull back her knees that were almost on the ground. Xian Yuanqi put away his sword. In the next second, he attacked Gu Jiao with an even fiercer killing move. Gu Jiao's face was serious. What happened to Xian Yuanqi? Why did he suddenly want to kill me? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/10551466. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 864. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. Gu Jiao was not the only one who was confused. Tang Yueshan was also completely surprised. This old ghost king named Xin Yuanqi was obviously on the same side as Gu Jiao. They got along well. One was the general of the Xin Yuan family, and the other was the new commander of the Xin Yuan cavalry. I almost forgot that Xiao Heng is the son of the crown princess. Then this girl is actually a relative of Xian Yuanqi. Hey, stop fighting. Tang Yueshan rushed over to stop them. However, Xian Yuanqi's second attack was too fierce. He was one step too late, and the power of that attack had already fallen on Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao raised her silver spear again to block it. The moment the weapons collided, even sparks were created from the friction. Tang Yueshan didn't know whether to worry about Gu Jiao's safety or whether the Jin army outside would hear them. "Girl, hold on for a while. I'll go and take a look." Tang Yueshan held the child in his arms in a very clumsy posture and ran all the way to the crack outside the cave. He carefully listened to the movements behind the mountain. The patrolling Jin army had already left. They were probably transferred to the village to dig a tunnel. He took a deep breath. "Okay, you two continue to fight." No. Why fight? They were all on the same side. Tang Yueshan continued to go back to the cave to persuade them. In such a short time, Gu Jiao and Xian Yuanqi had already exchanged 7 or 8 moves. Except for the first 2 moves, she was beaten down by Xian Yuanqi in every move. When Tang Yueshan came in, She had just been hit by Xian Yuanqi. Her whole body hit the rock wall behind her, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Tang Yueshan's body shook. No way, this girl didn't even suffer such a serious injury when she was fighting at the border of Zhao country. Was Xian Yuanqi serious? Did he want to kill this girl? Was he crazy? Tang Yueshan's eyes darkened. He flew up and raised his palm to attack Xian Yuanqi. Xian Yuanqi glanced at him from the corner of his eye and turned around with a swoosh. His palm met Xian Yuanqi's palm wind. The terrifying force was like gunpowder, exploding wildly within Tang Yu's body. The child in his arms cried out. His eyes trembled, and he hurriedly used half of his inner energy to protect the baby in his arms. As a result, Xian Yuanqi's inner strength invaded his dantian unstoppably. When he landed on the ground, he also felt pain in his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. Don't come over. Gu Jiao used her silver spear to support her body and stood up. There was no fear in her eyes. She casually wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and pointed her silver spear at Xian Yuanqi. I will defeat him myself. This was probably the most arrogant thing Tang Yueshan had ever heard in his life. Defeating a freak like Xian Yuanqi? Girl, are you sure your brain isn't damaged? Tang Yueshan's strength was archery. In terms of archery, even 10 Xian Yuanqis were no match for him. However, in terms of one-on-one combat, Tang Yueshan was inferior to Xian Yuanqi. This was not because Tang Yueshan's martial arts were weak, but because Xian Yuanqi's martial arts were too terrifying. During these years in Ghost Mountain, he had already entered an unbelievable realm. Even if Long Yi came, it would be impossible for him to hurt him easily. Gu Jiao panted and looked at Xian Yuanqi with an unyielding gaze like a wolf. In any case, I managed to withstand 2 moves from you. Earlier, in the graveyard, I couldn't even take 1 move. Next, I'm going to be serious. You'd better not. Pa. Before she could finish speaking, she was sent flying by Xian Yuanqi's sword. Gu Jiao. Seeing that she was about to hit the stone wall again, Gu Jiao turned around and stepped on the stone wall. Borrowing the force, she jumped and attacked Xian Yuanqi with her spear. From this moment on, she did not need to defend. Attacking was the strongest defense. Gu Jiao attacked again and again, displaying the 7 styles of Xian Yuan to the extreme. Tang Yueshan was dumbfounded. This little girl's martial arts were much more powerful than when she was in Zhao country. Speaking of which, what kind of spear technique was this? It was so powerful, even Xian Yuanqi was forced to retreat. Xian Yuanqi only retreated for a short while, and in the next moment, he launched an even more violent attack on Gu Jiao. All her escape routes were blocked. If Gu Jiao could not take this move, she could only die under his Qingfeng sword. But she had already used up the 7 styles of Xian Yuan. She had no more moves. Did Xian Yuanqi really want to kill her? Or was he just trying to scare her? If it was the latter, then he should have seen that she had reached her limit. She would definitely not be able to take this move. Xian Yuanqi did not have the slightest intention to stop. His sword was like a rainbow, and he suddenly slashed towards Gu Jiao's head. Gu Jiao smelled the scent of death. She could already see her blood splattering 3 feet away, and her head flying out and rolling on the ground. Gu Jiao, Jiao, when you come back, let's get married. Jiao Jiao, are you going to war again? But war is very tiring. I don't want Jiao Jiao to be so tiring. You can only eat 3 pills a day. You can't eat more. When you finish eating all of them, I will be back. She wanted to go back. She could not die here. A cold glint appeared in Gu Jiao's eyes. Heat waves rolled across her chest, and her mind exploded. It was as if it was driven by instinct, or as if she had practiced it countless times. She suddenly held the silver spear in her hand and spun it above her head. Then, she slashed down at Xian Yuanqi's long sword with a force that could split mountains and seas. Tang Yueshan's breathing stopped. With a crisp sound, the weapons collided, and sparks flew everywhere. Gu Jiao's spear slashed across Xian Yuanqi's Qingfeng sword. She stepped on the stone wall behind her, flipped in the air, and went straight for Xian Yuan Qi's glabella. Her speed suddenly became unbelievably fast. Even Tang Yueshan could only catch a glimpse of her afterimage. Clang! Xian Yuan Qi blocked her spear and grabbed her neck with his bare hands. You lost. Gu Jiao said, No. Xian Yuan Qi frowned and looked down. He saw that Gu Jiao's other hand was holding a dagger, and it was pressed against his dantian. Xian Yuan Qi's murderous aura faded, and he said calmly, It's already good that you can reach this step. Gu Jiao was exhausted. She used the silver spear to support her body. In fact, she still lost. Her dagger pierced his dantian, which would only cause him serious injuries. If he broke her neck, she would die on the spot. Tang Yueshan came back to his senses. He held the child and looked at Xian Yuan Qi with an ugly expression. After all this time, you were just testing her martial arts? You were too cruel, weren't you? If she couldn't use the last two moves, she would have died under your blade. Xian Yuan Qi didn't say anything. He just turned around and walked into the depths of the cave. All the mechanisms in the passage have been activated. We can go now. The Black Wind King came over and rubbed his head against Gu Jiao to comfort her. Gu Jiao took a deep breath. She looked at Xian Yuan Qi's back without looking back. An indescribable sense of strangeness surged in her heart. Xian Yuan Qi didn't hold back at all just now. It was as if he was sure that she could use the last two moves. However, the Xian Yuan family's spear technique only had 7 moves. The last 2 moves were forced out by her in a hurry. Was this guy trying to stimulate my potential? Other than that, I can't think of any other possibility. After Gu Jiao recovered a little bit of strength, she turned around to pick up the things that had fallen on the ground during the fight. Why is it missing? She looked around. What's missing? Tang Yueshan asked. A small booklet, Gu Jiao said. It was the information that she had memorized from Gong Sun Yu's study. She was afraid that she would forget it, so when Xian Yuan Qi woke up, she drew out all the pictures in her mind. It was very important. It was related to the victory of the entire battle and the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in Pu City. Found it. It's here. Gu Jiao bent down and picked up the booklet from a crack in a stone. She opened it and checked it. After making sure that she didn't miss any page, she and Tang Yueshan led their horses and caught up with Xian Yuan Qi. They entered a relatively tall passage through a stone door. However, it was still very narrow and couldn't accommodate 2 people walking side by side. In addition, the Black Wind King and the Black Wind Rider had to lower their heads. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to move forward. The 2 horses had never been trained to go through tunnels. After entering, the 8-year-old Black Wind Rider started to feel uneasy. The Black Wind King also felt uncomfortable. Gu Jiao turned around and stroked the horse's mane to comfort it. It's okay, boss. The Black Wind King forced himself to calm down. Tang Yueshan also comforted his horse in a low voice. He didn't even comfort his own son like this. After walking for a long time, they finally arrived at the exit. Xian Yuan Qi pressed the switch. The cold moonlight shone in and the cool night wind blew. Everyone breathed in the fresh air that they hadn't had in a long time. There was a vent in the tunnel that was connected to the ground. It was covered by bushes and thorns. However, the ventilation was poor. They were all sweating. The 3 people and 2 horses came out of the tunnel. This was an abandoned village. It was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. The official road was in the north. They came out of a cowshed less than 100 meters away from the official road. Then goodbye. Gu Jiao said goodbye to Xian Yuan Qi. Xian Yuan Qi didn't say anything. He came to the Black Wind King's side, stepped on it with 1 foot, and sat on it. Gu Jiao blinked. Xian Yuan Qi reached out to Gu Jiao expressionlessly. Gu Jiao was stunned. She stretched out her little paw arrogantly. Didn't you say that you don't want to go with us? Why? Aren't you going to stay in Ghost Mountain? I changed my mind. Xian Yuan Qi said lightly. He pulled Gu Jiao onto the horse. Gu Jiao sat behind him. It was quite sudden. Digression, Black Wind King. Master, you should lose weight. Xian Yuan Qi, I want to eat horse meat tonight. Black Wind King, I made a mistake. Again. Little Zhan Jiao, you should lose weight. Jiao Jiao, oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/105494377. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 865. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao and Xian Yuan Qi were riding on the same horse, so it was inconvenient for her to hold the child. She was afraid that the child would be squashed into a meat patty if she suddenly braked. Old Tang, here you go. Gu Jiao handed the child to Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan stretched out his arms, wishing he could take the child as far away as possible. Can I refuse? Gu Jiao raised her chin and said proudly, No. Tang Yueshan looked at Xian Yuan Qi, who was like a ghost king guarding the mountain, and held the child in his arms. It's okay, I'm going to have a godson soon. Although my godson doesn't practice martial arts, he's smart. After I save him, I'll let him deal with you big and small devils. Tang Yueshan was full of confidence, feeling that life was wonderful. They thought of 2 plans to get out of the city. One was to disguise themselves as merchants or commoners, but this plan was abandoned when they arrived in the city. The reason was that the city was under martial law. The number of patrolling Jin soldiers had doubled, and they could see the Jin soldiers on every street. Gu Jiao thought, did the news of Ghost Mountain spread to the Castellan mansion? They thought we escaped from Ghost Mountain, so they suddenly increased the security in order to prevent us from leaving the city? In any case, if the situation was so tense, it was basically impossible to get out of the city gate. Then they could only implement the second plan. You guys, wait here, Xian Yuan Qi said. Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan nodded. Xian Yuan Qi jumped and disappeared into the night. About an hour later, he came back with a big bag, which contained 3 sets of warm Jin soldiers' armor, as well as their talismans and identity iron plates. I don't know the Jin language. What's the name written on it? Gu Jiao muttered. Don't look at me, I don't know it either, Tang Yueshan said. Gu Jiao sat on the horse and tilted her head to look at Xian Yuan Qi. Her eyes seemed to be saying, you should know it, right? The knowledgeable and talented second Lord of Shadows? Xian Yuan Qi took the iron plate and let go of it exaggeratedly, letting the iron plate fall into the ground. Ah, it's gone. Gu Jiao was speechless. You really don't know? Bah. Well, this kind of iron plate was usually used to identify corpses after death in battle. Normally, it wasn't checked, so it didn't matter if it was dropped. In addition, Xian Yuan Qi had gotten a small basket from somewhere, and it just so happened to fit the baby inside. However, it was clear that the small basket was not enough. The cries of the newborn came as they wished. Gu Jiao had just put the child into the basket cushioned with cotton wool when the child began to cry. This shout caused the 3 of them to tremble. It was so loud that the top of her head was about to be overturned by the child's cries. Tang Yueshan's face paled. Don't cry, little ancestor. In a while, you'll make Jin Jun come crying. Wah 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 wah. He clenched his little fists and cried loudly. Benefactor. Suddenly, a woman holding a lantern appeared at the entrance of the alley. She walked towards Tang Yueshan with small steps. It's really you. Tang Yueshan was dumbfounded. Gu Jiao recognized her. She was one of the people who were bullied by Jean Jun in the alley yesterday. Gu Jiao didn't show up at that time, so she only knew Tang Yueshan. Benefactor, you saved our young lady. Have you forgotten? She said, looking at the baby in Tang Yueshan's arms, and asked, is he just born? Gu Jiao said his father was killed by Jean Jun. His mother is hiding from Jean Jun's pursuit. We want to take him away. Let me do it. The woman handed the lantern to Tang Yueshan and reached out to take the child from Gu Jiao. He must be hungry. My little miss was just born not long ago. We have a wet nurse at home. I'll carry him to feed him. Gu Jiao said, thank you. The woman hurriedly said, if you don't mind, please come with me. They followed her into the house. This was a wealthy family. It was a pity that all the men in the family had been taken away. Only the women and a few maids and servants lived in fear and trepidation. The woman took the baby to the upper room. The baby stopped crying in a moment. It seemed that he was drinking milk. About half a quarter of an hour later, the woman came out of the upper room. She came to the parlor and bowed to Gu Jiao and the other two. Then she said to Tang Yueshan, my lady is still in confinement. It is inconvenient for her to come out and thank you for saving her life. But my lady said that if you don't mind, you can leave the baby here first. When you are done with your work, you can come to pick him up. The woman was not stupid. Her lady was not stupid either. They were wearing the armor of Jean Jun. It was obvious that they were going to cause trouble. Gu Jiao asked, will it bring you danger? The woman said pleasantly, no, the wet nurse's children are also in the house. The two little guys cry all day long. It doesn't matter if there is one more. No one will notice. Besides, the Jean army is just robbing. They are not interested in a few babies. Gu Jiao thought about it carefully and felt that it was feasible. What did she say? Tang Yueshan asked. Gu Jiao said, she asked us to leave the baby here first and come to pick him up in a few days. Will it be exposed? Tang Yueshan asked. Gu Jiao said, it is very unlikely. There is a wet nurse's child and a newborn baby in the house. Tang Yueshan was relieved. After the problem of the baby was solved, the three continued on their way. In the meantime, Xian Yuan Qi took away, robbed, a war horse from the Jin Nation army and forced the Jin Nation soldier to teach him a few words of the Jin Nation language. Then he killed the soldier and took Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan to the city gate. He put down the mask of his helmet and showed his token. His aura was fully released. The guards trembled in fear and hurriedly saluted. General Liu. Gu Jiao was speechless. You actually made yourself a general. It is not dawn yet. Is General Liu going out of the city? The guard asked. Xian Yuan Qi put on airs and glanced at Gu Jiao ostentatiously. Gu Jiao said in the Jin language that she had just learned. General's secret order. Opened the city gate. Yes. Yes. Getting out of the city was smoother than expected. Gu Jiao wondered what kind of powerful person he had robbed. Could it be that he had robbed the city lord's mansion? No. After Gu Jiao expressed her doubts, Xian Yuan Qi denied it seriously. He had left the city lord's mansion. He had robbed them at the gate. It was dawn soon after they left the city. They didn't dare to delay for even a moment. So they rushed in the direction of Chuyang City. The Black Wind King was an excellent lead horse. Under its leadership, the Black Wind Cavalry and the Jin Army horses ran at the maximum speed. Gu Jiao pulled the reins tightly. Boss, we have to get to Chuyang City before dark. The Black Wind King faced the strong west wind and galloped on the official road. They took the shortcut that they came from. After getting off the official road, they entered the shady forest. They bypassed the winding paths and steep mountain streams and went all the way to the east gate of Chuyang City. The last time they rushed like this was during the last round of the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander. The distance from Puching to Chuyang City was less than 300 miles, but the road was not easy to travel. When they came out of another forest, the three horses were all injured. The Black Wind King did not dare to stop. Xian Yuan Qi chased after it and looked at it from afar. He did not expect little you to be like this. Little Ayu almost died when it was just born. He once thought that it would not grow up. However, not only did it grow up, but it also became the new Black Wind King who defeated the male horse. It was the most powerful Black Wind King. It was even more powerful than his big brother's Black Wind King. It had only participated in its first battle at the age of 16, and it was likely to be the last battle of its career. After this battle, it should be retired. Due to the high training intensity of the Black Wind Cavalry, its lifespan was shorter than that of ordinary warhorses. In order to ensure the maximum combat power, there were no warhorses older than 12 years old in the Black Wind Cavalry. Normally, they would stop serving at 13 years old. However, it was almost 17 years old and was still serving. Xin Yuanqi looked at it and also looked at the valiant little figure on its back. They were the most suitable companions in the world. The sun gradually set in the west. The Black Wind King took the lead. The two warhorses followed from afar. The distance between them was getting bigger and bigger. When Gu Jiao turned around, she could not see them anymore. It's okay, Cuyang City is just in front. It's the same if I send the message first. Boss, after we finish this official road, we'll see the city tower. As soon as she finished speaking, the Black Wind King suddenly slowed down. Gu Jiao frowned and pulled the reins to stop. The sound of hurried horse hooves came from the official road, and the sand on the ground shook. This sound of horse hooves, could it be that a cavalry is coming? As they got closer and closer, Gu Jiao saw the flags they were raising high. It was the Jin army. They had avoided the Jin army in Pucheng, but they encountered another Jin army here. What was going on? Gu Jiao first ruled out the possibility that the Jin army from Pucheng overtook them on the main road, and then turned around. The main road was much farther than the small road, and their horses could not outrun the Black Wind King. The Jin army seemed to be coming from the direction of the new city. The new city was the territory of the Nangong family. The Jin army had hidden in the new city a long time ago. Now that the imperial court's 120,000-strong army was coming to take back the new city, they did not have enough soldiers to defend it, so they abandoned the city and fled. They were going to the main camp in Pucheng, so they met Gu Jiao, who came from Pucheng. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Gu Jiao looked at the Jin army and roughly estimated that there were at least 10,000 soldiers. Their movements were so big and they were so close to Cuyang City, but they were not stopped by Cuyang City soldiers. There was only one possibility. Cuyang City soldiers had split into two, and almost all of them were mobilized. The only ones left in the city were the Black Wind Cavalry, who could not fight, and a portion of the garrison that was just enough to defend the city. This arrangement was correct. They could obtain the greatest victory with the least casualties and leave enough soldiers to deal with the 200,000-strong Jin army in Pucheng. No one expected Gu Jiao to encounter the Jin army. After all, if not for the urgent situation at Ghost Mountain, Gu Jiao would not have chosen to travel in the day. Gu Jiao did not have time to hide because the Jin army had already discovered her. Who's there? A Jin cavalry shouted. Digression. It's almost the end of the month. Little cutie, who has monthly votes. Please vote. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1054926223. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 866. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Gu Jiao was wearing the Jin army armor, so the other party should just be asking a normal question. Gu Jiao gently patted the back of the Black Wind King's horse. The Black Wind King retracted his king's chi and lowered his head, looking very tired. In terms of acting skills, no one could be more eye-catching than Gu Jiao, except Xian Yuanqi. The cavalryman sped up and ran towards Gu Jiao. He stopped about 6 feet away from Gu Jiao. He looked at Gu Jiao from head to toe and asked, "Which battalion are you from? Who's your subordinate?" Coincidentally, there were a few sentences in the Jin language that she had just learned. Gu Jiao answered his second question without changing her expression. "I'm under General Lu." She didn't know which battalion she was from, but she was afraid that he would mention which General Lu. The cavalryman looked at Gu Jiao suspiciously. "Are you under General Lu Wei's command? I've never seen you before." Gu Jiao said, "I was just transferred from General Min Hongyi's army. General Min was killed." The key was the last sentence. As expected, the cavalryman's expression changed immediately after hearing the news. "What? General Min was killed?" Min Hongyi was killed the night before yesterday. It seemed that the news hadn't spread to the new city yet. Gu Jiao said, "Yes." The cavalryman asked, "How did he get killed?" Gu Jiao said coldly, "I can't say much." It was mainly because she didn't know enough Jin language that she had learned at the last minute. Otherwise, she would be exposed. This was an experienced cavalryman, and obviously wouldn't be fooled so easily. He frowned again and looked at Gu Jiao. "Then what are you doing here? Are you here to catch the murderer?" "If I say that I'm here to catch the murderer, won't all of you follow me? Then how can I go back to Tsuyang City?" Gu Jiao was a woman of few words. "It's a secret order. I can't say much." Once the word secret was involved, it would have a sacred and inviolable color. In addition, Gu Jiao looked magnanimous. She didn't look guilty at all, so the cavalry believed her. Just as he was about to tell him to leave, another cavalryman came over. Judging from the red tassels on his armor, he was a small leader. "What has happened?" he asked. The cavalryman saluted him and said, "Vice General Zhang." He was a soldier under General Min. After General Min was killed, he was transferred to General Lu. He is now out of the city to carry out a secret order. Vice General Zhang's eyes turned cold. Secret orders are executed by at least 2 people. Was there such a thing? Since when did your Jin army become so advanced? Coincidentally, Xian Yuanqi and Tang Yueshan arrived at the same time. Xian Yuanqi's aura made people feel like strangers were not allowed to get close to him. He coldly glanced at the 2 Jin soldiers, and the 2 instantly felt like Mount Tai was pressing down on them. "General Lu." Gu Jiao saluted Xian Yuanqi. The mask on Xian Yuanqi's helmet was down, so people couldn't see his face clearly. However, with their status, they didn't dare to look directly at General Lu's appearance. The 2 also saluted. Xian Yuanqi simply said, "Let's go." Gu Jiao quickly replied, "Yes." Then, the 3 went back the way they came. The 2 cavalrymen were confused, but they didn't dare to make them stay. The 2 rode their horses back to meet up with the rest of the army. They also reported the situation to General D, who was leading the army this time. General D noticed 2 important points. Min Hongyi was in trouble, and his subordinates were taken away by General Lu Wei. "That's impossible," General D said. The 2 were stunned. General D frowned and said, "Lu Wei is in the scout camp. He is in charge of collecting intelligence. He is General Gongsuan's spy. Why would he want Min Hongyi's men?" Min Hongyi's soldiers were used for war. They weren't professional scouts. Lu Wei had no use for them. Most importantly, why would Lu Wei come to Tsuyang City in person? Was he carrying out some secret order? He came here, but he turned around and left after encountering his cavalrymen. He felt that something was wrong. "Are you sure that person is General Lu Wei?" General D asked. "Well," the 2 exchanged a look. Vice General Zhang thought carefully and said, He was wearing a helmet and had his mask down. We didn't see his face clearly, but his figure did seem to be bigger than General Lu Wei. Subordinates didn't dare to question their superiors. However, General Di and General Lu Wei were of the same rank. He was the one who questioned General Zhang, so Vice General Zhang dared to say something strange. General Di said, "Something is wrong. Zhang, run. You lead the cavalrymen and chase after him." "Yes." Vice General Zhang immediately led 500 cavalrymen to lead the way and outflank them from the main road and the small roads. When they heard the sound of horse hooves behind them, the three of them knew that their identities had been exposed. Unfortunately, there was no forest on this road that they could hide in. There was only a sparse little village. Gu Jiao held the reins tightly and said, "We can't go to the village." The Jin army was not easy to deal with. They would do anything. Tang Yueshan said, "We can't keep going forward. If we keep going, we will go back to Puching. We will be attacked from the front and back. We will be finished." Gu Jiao also understood this. The current situation was too unfavorable for the three of them. There were nearly 1,000 lives waiting for reinforcements in the tunnel. Every second they were delayed, they would be in more danger. It wasn't easy for them to get here. Would they be forced back by the 10,000 Jin soldiers? Gu Jiao held the reins tightly and said, "We can't go forward." They couldn't go any further. Their horses had been through a long journey for a whole day. They were already exhausted. It was only a matter of time before the cavalrymen of the Jin army caught up. The three of them stopped their horses. The sound of galloping horse hooves came from the front and the side. The Jin army had split into two and blocked their escape route. They only had one choice left: break out of the encirclement. The situation on the battlefield was ever-changing. Any perfect plan would encounter unexpected situations. This was exactly the case. The Imperial Army was out in full force. There were no extra soldiers in the city. They could only rely on themselves. But could the three of them really kill their way out of 10,000 soldiers? Tang Yueshan joined the army at the age of 12. He had fought countless battles in his life, but he had never fought such a difficult battle. It was not 2,000 against 20,000, but 3 against 10,000. Gu Jiao held the red tasseled spear and said, "We don't have to kill them. We just need to rush out. As long as we enter the city, they can't do anything to us." Although that was the case, it would definitely be a fierce battle. The sound of horse hooves was approaching. The murderous aura was endless. The sun was hidden in the clouds, and only the gray sky could be seen. Xian Yuanqi looked at the incoming cavalrymen of the Jin state and the black mass of infantrymen behind them. He urged his horse to take a few steps forward and stood in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was used to rushing at the front. She was slightly stunned when someone suddenly took over this dangerous position. Xian Yuanqi pulled out the long sword at his waist. The 3-foot sword reflected a cold light in the twilight. It was like a dragon out of the sea, eager to eat the bones and blood of the enemy. "Who is in front? Get down from your horse and follow me." Before the cavalryman could finish his sentence, Xian Yuanqi rode forward and cut off his head with his sword. This scene happened so suddenly that the cavalrymen behind did not have time to change their route. The horse hooves crushed the head that rolled down, and the brain matter fell out. Xian Yuanqi raised his sword and slashed down fiercely. He opened a path for Gu Jiao with the power of thunder. "Count me in." Tang Yueshan raised his hand and took the big bow on his back. He took out the arrows from the quiver and shot 3 arrows at the same time. Gu Jiao took advantage of the situation and rushed all the way with the Black Wind King. The cavalrymen of the Jin state were in a mess. If all 500 cavalrymen were here, they might not have succeeded so easily. However, they divided half of their forces and went to the official road on the side. The 3 of them did not continue to fight. After rushing out of the encirclement of the cavalrymen, they continued to rush in the direction of Chuyang City. Compared with more than 200 cavalrymen, The more than 9,000 soldiers in front of them were the real difficulties they had to face. Xian Yuanqi took the lead and opened a path in front. Tang Yueshan and Gu Jiao each formed the left and right wings, respectively, and they rushed into the dense army of the Jin state. As Gu Jiao said, their goal was not to defeat them. They would win if they rushed over. Get into formation. General D shouted. The well-trained Jin Nation army held shields and quickly formed an impenetrable iron wall. Shoot the arrows. Along with General D's stern shout, the archers behind the shields stood up and shot a rain of deadly arrows towards the three of them. Xian Yuanqi pulled the reins and changed his direction. He ran diagonally in front of Gu Jiao and directly in front of her. He used his long sword to cut down all the arrows that were flying towards Gu Jiao, building a wall that no weapon could penetrate. Tang Yueshan also pulled out his long sword and quickly brandished it. Xian Yuanqi's murderous intent was like thunder. He came to the front of the first formation and used his fierce killing move together with his powerful internal energy. He broke the shields of the Jin State Army with one sword, and the soldiers fell to the ground. Xian Yuanqi jumped on his horse and flew over the heads of the Jin State Army. A powerful warhorse could make its master even more powerful. Similarly, a powerful master could also make the warhorse perform incredible combat power. It stood proudly among the heroes like a beast in the abyss. Under Xian Yuanqi's control, it suddenly stepped into the Jin State Army. The Jin State Army was terrified as if they had seen the ancient god of death. However, this god of death was not enough. There was also a little god of death behind him. They cut through all obstacles, and wherever they went, the Jin State Army was defeated and blood splattered. Tang Yueshan also killed to his heart's content. Awesome. Ha ha ha. Come and kill me. Come on. Come on. He shouted to attract more soldiers to attack him, so that Gu Jiao and Xian Yuanqi could be relieved. I'll take you on. General D drew out his saber and urged his horse to charge at Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan and General D of the Jin State fought fiercely. General D was also a powerful general of the Jin State and was skilled in martial arts. Tang Yueshan looked down on him at first, but after a few moves, he realized that General D was a tough opponent. Tang Yueshan was forced to take him seriously. On the other side, Xian Yuanqi and Gu Jiao were also surrounded by the Jin State Army. They learned from their previous failure and gave up the defensive formation to attack. The situation suddenly became more serious. Everyone was losing their strength. The difference was that the Jin State Army always had a constant supply of fresh blood, while Gu Jiao and Xian Yuanqi were losing less strength. Gu Jiao was in a killing frenzy. Soon, they were about to rush out, F*CKU. Tang Yueshan was almost stabbed in the back. He thrust his sword backward and pierced General D's abdomen. He leaned back on the horse, curled his stomach, and raised his legs. He wrapped his legs around General D's head and twisted him hard. With a cracking sound, General D screamed miserably and fell down. One of the Jin soldiers was shocked. General D! General D! Tang Yueshan gritted his teeth and sat back on the horse. Who attacked him just now? He got a dart in his thigh. He pulled out the dart and threw it away. He killed his way and caught up with Gu Jiao and Xian Yuanqi. The three of them rode side by side. Gu Jiao noticed the blood on his thigh. You're injured. Tang Yueshan said, It's just a small injury. It's okay. General D's fall made the Jin State Army's morale drop for a moment. It was a great opportunity for them to rush out of the encirclement. However, at this moment, a terrifying murderous aura came from behind. Gu Jiao's heart skipped a beat. Clang! It was Xian Yuanqi who cut off the arrow. It was not an ordinary arrow. The moment it broke, countless poisonous needles burst out. Xian Yuanqi waved his sword and used it as a shield to block all the poisonous needles. A woman's bell-like laughter came from behind. Ha ha ha! Amazing! Really amazing! This voice, she was the only female general under Gong Sunyu. She was good at using hidden weapons and setting up formations. She was the same age as Gu Jiao. She was 16 this year. He did not expect her to submit to Gong Sunyu so early. She was a Turkic. She had a pair of beautiful light brown eyes. Her appearance was bright and beautiful, but she did not lose the innocence of a young girl. She wore a graceful pink dress. Her waist was slender and her body was light. She reminded people of the butterfly spirits among the flowers in the misty forest. She was riding a beautiful white horse. The horse was beautiful and pleasing to the eye. It did not fit in with the bloody battlefield. "Miss you." A Jin soldier recognized her. At this moment, Yu Liuyi was not a general of the imperial court. She was just a master recruited by Gong Sunyu. However, she was not a general, but it did not mean that the other person was not a general. A burly man riding a tall steed caught up to them and said in a rough voice, "Little Lu, this is a place where men fight. It's better for you to move aside so that you don't get hurt. If the Lord blames me, I won't be able to bear it." Yu Liuyi said carelessly, "Oh, the Lord blames you, not me. I don't care." A Jin soldier said excitedly, "General Zhu. General Zhu is here." That was right. This person was none other than another fierce general under Gong Sunyu, Zhu Zhangguang, known as the Iron Palm. His position in the army was much higher than General D's. His arrival undoubtedly boosted the morale of the Jin soldiers. Yu Liuyi looked at one of the three with a smile and said, "That fatty. Yes, it's you. You were hit by my poisonous dart. Without the antidote, you will die in less than an hour." Tang Yueshan was furious. F*CKU fatty. He was Zhuang. He was as strong as a yak. Zhu Zhangguang and Yu Liuyi's arrival reignited the Jin soldiers' blood. They rushed forward and surrounded Gu Jiao and the other two. If this continued, the three of them would be exhausted to death. Xian Yuan Qi looked ahead. At the end of the official road was a pass. After passing through the pass, they could see the tower of Tsuyang City. "Don't fight. Run at full speed," he said. "Yes." Gu Jiao nodded. "Boss." The Black Wind King ran at a speed that he had never run in his life. He did not know how many swords and sabers had cut him, but he did not hesitate at all. He rushed all the way to the pass with Gu Jiao. Zhu Zhangguang led the soldiers to chase after them, and Yu Liuyi assisted with hidden weapons. Xin Yuanqi's warhorse was hit by a poisonous dart. The poison had invaded its internal organs, and it could not run anymore. Gu Jiao reached out to Xian Yuanqi. "Get on the horse." Xian Yuanqi reached out to Gu Jiao, but he did not want to hold her hand. Instead, he slapped the Black Wind King with his palm. The huge internal force sent the Black Wind King and Gu Jiao forward. Gu Jiao frowned and looked back at him. Xian Yuanqi. Xian Yuanqi sent Tang Yueshan and his warhorse out with another palm. He did not do this because he had lost his mount. From the moment he gave the order to rush to the pass, he had already made this decision in his heart. His life was about to come to an end, but he did not know what his mission was. He often thought that he might not be able to wait any longer. Yu Liuyi said disdainfully, "Humph. You want to stop my Jin country's 10,000-strong army by yourself? Dream on." She flew up and slashed at Xian Yuanqi with a folding fan in her hand. Silver needles shot towards Xian Yuanqi like flying flowers. Xian Yuanqi's figure flashed and disappeared in front of Yu Liuyi. So fast. Yu Liuyi's expression changed, and a chill ran down her spine. She hurriedly turned around to defend, but she was a step too late. Xian Yuanqi stabbed her right wrist. Ah! A sharp pain came from her wrist, and blood spurted out. Her folding fan fell to the ground, and her beautiful face turned pale. "What's the point of bullying a little girl? If you have the ability, fight with me." Zhu Zhangguang slammed his palm towards Xian Yuanqi. His palm actually forced Xian Yuanqi to take a few steps back. Zhu Zhangguang snorted proudly. "I don't kill nameless people. Who are you? Tell me your name." Xian Yuanqi's eyes were cold. "You scoundrels are not worthy." He looked like he was forced to retreat, but it was actually a feint. This distance was more suitable for him to use the ghost mountain sword Qi. Zhu Zhangquang was sent flying by his sword and fell to the ground heavily. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Yu Liuyi said fiercely, "Attack together." Zhu Zhangquang ordered, "Don't just stand there. Kill them. Who can charge through today? The reward is 1,000 taels." Brave men were bound to appear when there was a great reward. The Jin country's army madly rushed towards the mountain pass. Xianyuan Qi held a 3-foot-long sword in his hand and domineeringly guarded the mountain pass. One man could hold back 10,000 men. Tang Yueshan's poison spread in his body, and he vomited blood while lying on the horse's back, losing the ability to fight. The sound of fighting came from behind. The Black Wind King did not turn back. It exhausted all its strength and rushed forward without caring about its life. Gu Jiao held the reins tightly. Xianyuan Qi, hang in there. The Black Wind Cavalry is coming. The Jin country's army is coming. On the observation tower, a guard noticed the figure rushing towards the city gate. "Wait, it doesn't seem like it. Open the gate," Gu Jiao shouted. The one guarding the east gate today was General Ji. He recognized Gu Jiao's voice. "Commander Xiao. Commander Xiao is back. Open the gate." "Black Wind Cavalry," Gu Jiao shouted again. "What's wrong? Why did they suddenly call for the Black Wind Cavalry? Could it be General Ji? Look." A guard pointed at the mountain pass in the distance. The mountain pass was not directly facing the tower, and it had to be turned right. The mountain blocked most of the Jin country's army, and it also blocked Xianyuan Qi's figure. However, the Jin country's army behind the mountain was decreasing. They rushed into the mountain pass, but none of them came out. It was as if they were all swallowed by the mountain pass. General Ji said, "Inform the Black Wind Cavalry to fight." The guard said awkwardly, "Only the reserve camp can fight." General Ji said, "Go to the reserve camp not because they are weak, but because there are some things that must be done. Don't underestimate any soldier." "Yes. 200 meters. 150 meters. 100 meters. I am about to enter the city." The capstan on the city gate tower turned with a rumbling sound. The 2 gates in the city gate hole were pulled open one by one, and the last city gate rose up slowly. Bang! Tang Yueshan's Black Wind Cavalry fell. A man and a horse fell heavily to the ground. Gu Jiao gritted her teeth and did not stop at all. She quickly ran towards the city gate. "Xianyuan Qi, hang in there. You have to hang in there." Xianyuan Qi was covered in blood as he stood in the middle of the mountain pass. His Qinfeng sword was dripping with blood. His stamina and life were also rapidly depleting. Yu Liuyi said, "Their city gate is open. There are less than 10,000 soldiers in Tsuiyang City that can fight. Why don't we take the chance to kill our way in?" Zhu Zhangquang held his chest and said, "But this guy is not dead yet." Yu Liuyi wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and looked at Xianyuan Qi, whose arm was cut by a Jin country soldier. She said, "I think he's almost out of stamina. When we enter the city, we will first kill that kid, and then kill their city guard. This is a good opportunity to take down Tsuiyang City. The heavens are on our side." Zhu Zhangquang also felt that this idea was feasible. He attacked Xianyuan Qi again, but he never expected that Xianyuan Qi could still send him flying with one strike after being exhausted like this. He gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it." Yu Liuyi panted and said, "I calculated that we must kill him within 10 moves, or we won't be able to make it in time." Zhu Zhangquang said with lingering fear, "But with our strength, not to mention 10 moves, we can't do anything to him in 20 moves." Yu Liuyi was so angry that she vomited blood. What a monster. It was no wonder that Yu Liuyi said that. That guy was not afraid of death or pain. He was like a living dead that crawled out from the ground. He could not be beaten down or killed. Yu Liuyi clenched her fists and coldly glanced at Zhu Zhangquang, who was about to retreat. She snorted and said, "If you want to hide, then hide. I won't hide. Today, only one of us can live." After saying that, she pulled out the soft sword at her waist and used her qing gong to stab at Xian Yuan Qi. Her soft sword entangled with Xian Yuan Qi's qingfeng sword. She curled her lips, and a poisonous needle flew out from between her fingers, stabbing straight at Xian Yuan Qi's vital point. Xian Yuan Qi pulled back his long sword, and the sword Qi sent Yu Liuyi flying, shattering her silver needle. Yu Liuyi crashed into the stone wall behind her and was bounced back by the huge force. She fell beside Xian Yuan Qi's feet in a sorry state. Xian Yuan Qi's sword stabbed towards Yu Liuyi's forehead. Yu Liuyi was so scared that she closed her eyes and turned her face away. She heard the sound of a sharp blade entering her body, but the pain that she imagined did not come. A drop of hot blood dripped onto her face. She opened her eyes and saw that Xian Yuan Qi's long sword had stopped in front of her forehead. It was only half an inch away from stabbing her. She looked up. Xian Yuan Qi's chest was pierced by a long spear that was shining with cold light. That long spear looked a little familiar. She turned around and saw a man in a white brocade robe riding a majestic dark brown warhorse under the drooping curtain of the night. The man had an unparalleled aura in the world, and his eyes were calm and steady. Yu Liuyi's eyes lit up. Master. Zhu Zhangquang also hurriedly bowed. Master. Gongsun Yu calmly raised his hand. Yu Liuyi kicked Xian Yuan Qi. Who asked you to be so arrogant? You dare to be arrogant again. Blood dripped from Xian Yuan Qi's chest. He gripped his long sword tightly, supported himself, and slowly stood up. The well-trained archers behind him drew their longbows and aimed at Xian Yuan Qi in unison. There was a long spear in Xian Yuan Qi's body. He did not spend any effort to pull the spear out. Instead, he dragged his long sword and walked towards Gongsun Yu step by step. The long sword made an ear-piercing sound on the cold hard stone ground. The Black Wind King leaped into the city gate. Gu Jiao did not turn around. Her heart was beating uncontrollably, and her hand that was holding the reins began to tremble. Commander Xiao. Zhao Dengfeng called her from the back of the horse. She did not seem to hear him. She let go of her stiff hand and dismounted from the horse. She calmly walked up the city gate tower. Only one Rinchong noticed that her entire body was trembling slightly. Some of the soldiers wanted to attack Xian Yuan Qi, but Gongsun Yu raised his hand and stopped them. Xian Yuan Qi's vision was blurred by the blood. He had overexerted himself, and his dantian had already exploded. All the bones in his body were broken, and blood flowed out of his orifices. Intense pain gnawed at his body. He walked towards Gongsun Yu with great difficulty, but his will was firm. Yu Liuyi stood beside Gongsun Yu's horse and looked up at him in confusion. Master, let him come over, Gongsun Yu said. Xian Yuan Qi seemed to have walked his entire life in just a few short steps. Xian Yuan Qi used all his remaining strength to raise the qingfeng sword in his hand and launch a final attack at Gongsun Yu. Puchi, the long sword pierced through his body. It was Gongsun Yu's sword. Bang! The city gate closed. Gu Jiao stood on the towering city gate tower. She gripped the city wall tightly with both hands and scratched a large patch of blood. Show the flag. Show what flag? General Ji was stunned. One Rinchong rushed up. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and jumped onto the city gate tower. He unfurled the eagle flag in his hand. The Great Yen flag and the Xian Yuan commander's flag fluttered in the west wind. Xian Yuan Qi knelt on the ground powerlessly and looked in the direction of the city gate tower. Was that the commander's flag of the Xian Yuan family? He could still see it before he died. How nice. He had no regrets. Zhang forgive your father. I can't wait until the day I reunite with you. The Lord of Shadows Xian Yuan Qi had completed his mission. See you in the next life. Father. A heart-wrenching cry came from the official road behind him. Xian Yuan Qi closed his eyes and lowered his arms. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/105470553. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 867. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. He's dead. Yu Liuyi looked at the lifeless Xian Yuanqi and pulled out her sword. She snorted, "He hurt me. I'm going to cut off his hand." "Liuyi." Gong Sun Yu calmly called out to her. Yu Liuyi's dagger-wielding hand paused in midair. "What's wrong, my lord?" Gong Sun Yu listened to the approaching sound of horse hooves and said, "Let's go." Yu Liuyi looked at the man galloping towards them from the end of the road. Behind him was a large army. She frowned unwillingly and put away her dagger. This guy got lucky. She quickly mounted her horse. "Gong Sun, you didn't bring a large number of troops, only 20 archers. They didn't have the advantage in numbers. However, this man looked very powerful. Killing him would undoubtedly be a heavy blow to the Yen kingdom." Yu Liuyi followed Gong Sun Yu. "My lord, who's that big guy?" Gong Sun Yu looked at the rolling dark clouds in the sky. "Yen kingdom's general, Xian Yuanqi." "Xian Yuanqi? Didn't the Xian Yuan family all die?" Yu Liuyi muttered to herself. She looked up and saw that Gong Sun Yu and the 20 archers were already in front of her. She quickly whipped her horse and caught up. She said to Gong Sun Yu, "My lord, your horses are very powerful. I've never seen them before." Gong Sun Yu said calmly, "The Yen Kingdom's Han family sent the Black Valiant Cavalry." Yu Liuyi said mischievously, "Black Valiant Cavalry? The Xian Yuan family has the Black Wind Cavalry. The Han family has the Black Valiant Cavalry. Interesting. My lord, I want one too." "Gong Sun," you said, "there are more in the city lord's residence. Go back and pick one." Yu Liuyi smiled brightly. Okay. The group of people left. The last ray of light dimmed. Dark clouds swallowed the entire night sky. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The biting cold west wind instantly turned into a storm. The grass and trees at the pass swayed, as if tens of thousands of heroic souls at the border were sobbing silently. Yu Liuyi was drenched and snorted disdainfully. "Today is not a good day to attack the city. We'll fight them another day." Gong Sun, you didn't say anything as he rode on his horse. His expression was cold and solemn, like a god from the 9 heavens. In the end, the last great general of the Xian Yuan family had fallen in his hands. The legend of the Xian Yuan family came to an end. Sooner or later, Great Yen would fall into Great Jin's hands. By the time Liao Chen's horse reached the mountain pass, Gong Sun, you had already left with the Jin army. He almost jumped off the horse and fell heavily into the mud that was soaked by the rain. Braving the cold rain, he rushed over on his knees and arrived in front of Xian Yuanqi. He looked at the man who was covered in blood and had his chest pierced by a spear. Tears immediately flowed out of his eyes. Why, the wound that he had taken 20 years to heal was once again cruelly torn open, and his heart felt as if it had been torn in half. He raised his hand and wanted to hug his father, but he was worried that he would hurt him. Such a serious injury, so painful. He knelt in front of his father, and his entire body was trembling uncontrollably. He suppressed the pain in his heart, and his tears fell onto the ground. Why can't I see you after so long? Why can't you wait for me? Why must you leave me behind every time? Open your eyes, look at me. Look at Zhang. Zhang has grown up. Liao Chen knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. His fingers dug into the mud, and blood spread from his fingertips and flowed all over the ground. The heavy rain broke a big tree that had been cut by the sword energy at the mountain pass. Without the cover of the big tree, everyone on the city tower saw this scene. They had all thought that there was a small army at the mountain pass, and that was why they didn't let the Jin army charge over. Who knew it was just one person? That person used his own flesh and blood to guard the mountain pass and stop the 9,000 soldiers of the Jin army. His body was full of arrows and knives, and there was even a spear that pierced through his chest. What kind of tenacious and unyielding willpower was this? What kind of willpower could make a person forget life and death, or even surpass life and death? Everyone had tears in their eyes. They didn't know who that person was, but they all felt the powerful willpower coming from him. That was the undying war spirit of the great Yen. Yi Qing stood on the city tower and stared at the father and son kneeling in the rain without even saying goodbye. His heart was filled with countless complex emotions. Master, your divination has come true. Everything is exactly the same as what you said. The soul of Xianyuan has fallen under Gongsun Yu's sword. But Master, since you already know the result, why did you still send me to the border? So that I can witness this tragedy with my own eyes? With my ability, I can't change anything. I didn't even have time to take precautions. The soul of Xianyuan shouldn't have fallen. The state teacher's disappointed voice flashed through his mind. Yi Qing's eyes turned cold, as if he had made some kind of decision. He clenched his fists, flew up, and jumped down from the city tower. Master Yi. General Ji's expression changed. He reached out to grab him, but he was too late. He didn't even touch a corner of Yi Qing's clothes. The blue robe of the state teacher's palace fluttered in the wind and rain, like an ink-stained green lotus blooming. Yi Qing jumped down from the city tower. General Ji's face was solemn. Master Yi, what do you want to do? Yi Qing used Qing Gong to rush through the wind and rain. Master, since the soul of Xianyuan shouldn't have fallen, then please forgive me for making this decision without permission. I'm very sorry for going against your will. When I return to the state teacher's palace, I'm willing to accept any punishment. I don't know if this can save him. Maybe I can't save him, and I'll waste the most precious thing you gave me. But no matter what, I want to try my best. If I'm wrong, please let me use the rest of my life to make up for today's mistake. Wen Rinchong jumped down and came to Gu Jiao's side. Commander Xiao, that person is? Gu Jiao looked at Yi Qing's figure flying in the rain, and her eyes moved. General Xianyuan Qi. Wen Rinchong was stunned. General? General? He's not. Could it be? No, it's him. Gu Jiao concisely answered his question. Prepare the stretcher. Finished speaking. She turned around and quickly went down the city tower. The rain was getting heavier. When Yi Qing came to the father and son side, the three of them were all soaked. Yi Qing knelt down on one knee and took out a small porcelain bottle from his arms. Xianyuanzhang, help me support your father's head. Liao Chen was slightly stunned. He hadn't heard anyone call his name for many years, so he didn't react for a moment. My name is Yi Qing, the eldest disciple of the state teacher's palace. Yi Qing said, and his eyes were cold. If you don't hurry up when your father is completely dead, even Deluo Jin Xian won't be able to save him. Tears rolled down Liao Chen's face as he held his father's head that was gradually losing its temperature. He could no longer feel his father's pulse and breathing. Like this, can he really be saved? Yi Qing pulled out the cork. In the state teacher's palace, there are many patients who have stopped breathing and pulse. Not everyone can be saved, but as long as they aren't completely dead, there is still a glimmer of hope. Liao Chen choked and asked, what is considered completely dead? Yi Qing poured out the only pill left in the bottle, pried open Xianyuan Qi's mouth, and fed it to him. If your breath and pulse stop for half an hour, then you're basically completely dead. An expert like your father may be able to delay it a bit. This kind of pill didn't seem to melt in the mouth. Yi Qing then slapped Xianyuan Qi's abdomen and used his internal energy to slide the pill into his stomach. Liao Chen carefully avoided the weapons on his father's body and let his father lean on his chest. In the past, his father was his support. In the future, he hoped that he could become his father's support. There are 2 points. Yi Qing glanced at him and said, "First, I'm not sure if your father is dead or not. If he's dead, then it's useless for him to take this pill. Second." Saying this, Yi Qing paused. "Even if your father isn't completely dead, this pill may not have any effect." Liao Chen looked at him with a complicated expression. "The pill you gave my father is purple grass poison." Yi Qing met his gaze and honestly said, "You should have heard of this poison. It has a 99% chance of directly killing your father, making him completely dead." Liao Chen squeezed his fingers and murmured, "In other words, the chance of survival is only 1 out of 100. Not that much." Yi Qing pondered for a moment, then said, "With your father's situation, 1 out of 10,000 is the most." Gu Jiao arrived at the scene and found that Xin Yuanqi's situation couldn't be carried on a stretcher. That is, if Xin Yuanqi had any hope of being saved. Gu Jiao began to deal with the weapons on his body, starting with the spear. Yi Qing, as the state teacher's direct disciple, was also not weak in medical skills, so he cooperated very well. One Ren Chong and the others held up their raincoats, blocking the pouring rain from the sky. "What did you give him?" Gu Jiao asked Yi Qing. "Purple grass poison," Yi Qing said. Gu Jiao understood. Since coming to the Yan Kingdom, she had heard of this poison more than once. Last time, Gu Chongqing was stabbed by an Hun and was sent to the intensive care unit, almost becoming a cripple. The state teacher also intended to give him this poison. It's just that the poison had expired. Gu Chongqing used his own willpower and psychological suggestion to pull himself through. This was a miracle in the history of medicine, but Xin Yuanqi's situation was very different from Gu Chongqing's. Gu Chongqing had already woken up, and his life was no longer in danger. He just didn't want to become a cripple. But Xin Yuanqi, he really breathed his last. Gu Jiao put on the silver silk gloves and cut the spear in Xin Yuanqi's chest with the golden silk. "This won't expire again, right?" "It won't." The state teacher had told him about last time before he left. He hurriedly explained. The medicine master gave Gu Chongqing was left many years ago. This medicine was found in the Han family's mansion a few days ago. Han family? Gu Jiao cut the spear in her back with the snow sky silk. Yi Qing said, "Yes, Master said that the Han family is likely to control a large purple grass garden. They have a lot of purple grass in their hands. The Han family's black valiant cavalry and 5th Master Han's black demon horse were all fed with purple grass poison." Black valiant cavalry. Gu Jiao frowned slightly when she heard the name, but this also explained why 5th Master Han's horse was so powerful. "Then didn't a lot of horses die?" she asked. Yi Qing nodded. Animals are much more resistant to purple grass poison than humans, but there is still a 70% failure rate. A large number of young horses are poisoned to death, and only those who survive are qualified to become black valiant cavalry. Gu Jiao didn't speak anymore. In order to strengthen themselves, the Han family was really willing to do anything. If it wasn't for Yi Qing's master mentioning it before he left, he wouldn't have known that the Han family had so many crazy secrets. He coldly said, "They're worse than animals." Gu Jiao glanced at him and disagreed. "Don't insult animals." Yi Qing was stunned. "Oh." Gu Jiao's hand that was treating Xin Yuanqi's wounds suddenly stopped and solemnly asked, "Yi Qing, will the purple grass poison lessen his pain?" Yi Qing quickly realized that she was referring to Xin Yuanqi. Liao Chen supported his father in his arms and also carefully looked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao didn't hide anything from him. As a son, he had the right to know his father's real situation. He has very serious internal injuries and suffers great pain every day. Living is a kind of torture for him, but death is a kind of relief for him. Liao Chen clenched his fists, and his body slightly trembled. He didn't expect his father to be like this all these years. He will. Yi Qing firmly said, "Either he will be poisoned to death, and the pain will end, or he will endure the poison and be reborn. Thinking of something, Yi Qing added, after being poisoned by the purple grass poison, he will enter a state of suspended animation and will look no different from a dead person. It will last for different hours. Some people will last for 6 hours, some for 14 hours. If he still can't wake up after 24 hours, then he is really dead. Gu Jiao's eyes fell on the man's face. Xian Yuanqi, you have to survive. No matter who you've been waiting for all these years and what kind of agreement you have with him, I think he doesn't want you to die here. Your mission is not complete. Go through all the pain in the world. Live on as the spirit of Xian Yuanqi. Live on as Liao Qin's father. Live on as Jing Kong's uncle. And witness the new dynasty and peace. That is your true mission. Xian Yuanqi was brought back to the wounded barracks, and Yi Qing personally guarded him. Liao Qin pulled himself together. Whether or not his father could be saved, he couldn't wallow in the pain for too long. Is it Gong Sun Yu? Liao Qin asked faintly under the awning outside the tent. Other than him, there was only Gu Jiao in the tent, looking at the map. Gu Jiao grunted. Yes, it's him, the main general of Jin's expedition to the east, General Xin Wei. Liao Qin said coldly, I will kill him with my own hands. Gu Jiao looked at him. Liao Qin had changed out of his monk robes and put on the black robes of the Shadow Division, which made him look a bit murderous. Okay. Gu Jiao said, he is yours. The lights under the awning reflected in Liao Qin's eyes, like two burning flames of vengeance. What are the other two called? Gu Jiao flipped through the map and said, Zhu Zhangquang and Yu Liuyi. They are both Gong Sun, Yu's confidants. Liao Qin said, if they are here, I will kill them as well. No one will take your head, but... Gu Jiao said, handing him the map with the key points. We may have to split our forces. They may not all gather in one place. You have to think carefully about who to deal with. Liao Qin said without hesitation, Gong Sun Yu. A medical officer came out from another camp. Gu Jiao called out to them, how is old Tang? The medical officer hurriedly said, Commander Xiao, he has taken the antidote pill you gave him. He is fine now. He will recover after a few days of sleep. Yu Liuyi was a master of concealed weapons, but she didn't use poison. The antidote pill given by Madame Nen could cure all poisons, except for Shang Guanqing's poison. Thinking of Shang Guanqing, Gu Jiao closed the map and said to Liao Qin, Shang Guanqing is still trapped in Ghost Mountain. We must attack Puqing as soon as possible and draw the Jin army away. How many soldiers do you have in your Shadow Division? 20,000, Liao Qin said. Not all of them are from the Shadow Division. There are also some old subordinates of the Shen Yuan family. Gu Jiao said, the Black Wind Cavalry can fight for 10,000 soldiers. Altogether, there are 30,000 soldiers. The Imperial Army is attacking the Liang Army. I sent one Ren Chong to send a message. I don't know how many soldiers they can send. The Imperial Army had 120,000 soldiers. 80,000 of them were soldiers, while the rest were supplies and logistics. The Jin Army claimed to have 200,000 soldiers. It was unknown whether that was true or how many soldiers they had. Gu Jiao called for Teacher Hu. How many of the translations have you done? Teacher Hu hurriedly said, half. I will go and urge them. Gu Jiao reminded him, remember, not a single word is wrong. Teacher Hu patted his chest. Yes, sir. Don't worry. I have found 4 true descendants of the Jin army. I have checked them carefully. There will be no mistakes. Gu Jiao said, that's good. I need accurate information about the Jin army. On the other side, Shang Guanyan was in charge of the rear. Marquis Xianping led his troops to kill the Jin army. Wang Man led his troops to besiege the Nangong family and recapture the new city. Marquis Xianping drove the Liang army out of the border. But that was not enough. He directly killed his way to the border of the Liang country and planted the flag of the Great Yan on the territory of the Liang country. In the rear tent, spies constantly sent in reports of victory from both sides. Shang Guanyan was very satisfied. At this rate, it will be over in 3 to 5 days. Outside the tent, a man's voice came. Your Highness, Wonren Chong of the Black Wind Battalion requests an audience. Shangguan Yen sternly said, Come in. Wonren Chong hurried into the tent, cupped his hands and bowed. He presented the letter in his hands. Huan took the letter and opened it and handed it to Shangguan Yen. After Shangguan Yen looked at it, she stood up with a swish sound. Her crown princess aura was fully released. Someone come. Go and inform General Xiao and General Wang Man. They must end the battle tonight. Tomorrow we will set out to attack Pu City. Digression. When I said 2 chapters, it meant that the 2 chapters were combined into one. My daily update was at least 4,000 words or more, and it had nothing to do with the number of chapters. In addition, Himalayas released a multiplayer version of Yusheng. You can search for the host, run for Yusheng, and click on his homepage. On the right of the first row, there is Grand Concubine. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_896426/105450294. HTML Genius will remember this site's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 868. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Marquis Xianping was planning to order the soldiers to rest and continue the siege tomorrow morning, but he received an order from the rear. He frowned. Why are you in such a hurry to finish tonight? The best way to deal a heavy blow to the Liang army's vitality was to attack all the way into Bian City. Of course, this was impossible. Neither the military strength nor the provisions would allow it. But at least he had to seize a few border cities to hurt the Liang army. Tonight, he would reorganize. Tomorrow, he would attack Li County and harvest more heads of Liang dogs. The guard presented a letter with both hands and said, "This is a letter from Her Highness the Crown Princess. Please take a look." Marquis Xianping casually took it. A message is a message. Why write a letter? There were no superfluous words in the letter, only 6 words. Qing'er was trapped in Pu City. Marquis Xianping's expression instantly turned cold. In order to make it easier for him to lead the troops to war, Shangguan Yen fabricated an identity for him as an old subordinate of the Xian Yuan family. He had been working secretly for years and temporarily conferred him the position of Dingyuan General. Although everyone was unfamiliar with this person, it was an indisputable fact that he killed Chu Feiping. In addition, the 4 of them defeated the Liang army's thousands of soldiers and horses. There was no doubt about their prestige and strength. In addition, everyone only thought that the crown princess wanted to take the opportunity to support her henchmen. They were not too surprised by his sudden appearance. This time, he was with the Great Yan Imperial Court's General Zhao Guoping. Did General Zhao also get the letter? Marquis Xianping asked. It seems no. The guard braced himself and said. Marquis Xianping's expression was as calm as ever, but there was a bit of chilling murderous aura around him. I know. You go and reply to the Crown Princess. Not tomorrow morning, at midnight, I will take Li County. The guard opened his mouth wide. At midnight? There were only 2 hours left, right? Can they really take it? Shangguan Yen paced back and forth in the tent. She vaguely felt that she had missed something, but she couldn't remember it at once. Her mind was full of the news that her son was besieged in Ghost Mountain. She couldn't believe it was true. Why did her son come to the border all of a sudden? He even fell into the Jin army's territory? What the hell is going on? There was limited space in the letter. Gu Jiao only picked out the main points. Everything would have to be discussed in detail when they met. Juana wanted to remind her, but seeing how anxious she was, she silently swallowed her words. When something happened to His Highness Zhangsun, the first person you thought of was Marquis Xianping. Have you forgotten about General Zhao? It didn't matter if she forgot. Marquis Xianping would deal with it clearly. At midnight, Marquis Xianping flattened the Li County camp and killed 6 Liang country generals. The Liang army was forced to retreat. They wanted to escape but were surrounded by the Yan country army. In the end, King Pingyang stepped forward and submitted a humiliating letter of surrender. With the letter of surrender in hand, King Pingyang was taken away by Marquis Xianping as a hostage. On the other hand, Wang Man's task was much easier. The new city was not as sturdy as Chuyang City. Furthermore, the Nangong family's army had been left behind in Chuyang City by Tsun Takashi. There were less than 10,000 local soldiers left in the city. When Wang Man's army of tens of thousands charged over, the Nangong family was destined to lose. When the sun was about to rise, Nangong Sitsi died in battle, and the others were captured alive. In the commander's tent of the Black Wind camp in Chuyang City, advisor who walked over with the translated booklet in his arms. My lord, please take a look. Gu Jiao looked away from the sand table and raised her hand to take the book. Liao Chen was also in her tent. The two of them carefully read the intelligence of the Jin army. Gu Jiao said, there are more than 200,000 soldiers. Excluding the supplies, there are more than 160,000 soldiers who can fight. Given the conditions of war in this dynasty, the supplies usually accounted for about a third of the total military strength. The Jin army was no exception. Gu Jiao continued, we can mobilize about this number of soldiers. However, the Jin army still has to include the 30,000 soldiers of the Han family. The main reason for this situation was that the Yan country was besieged by 5 countries. Many of its soldiers were scattered. The only country that could be confirmed to have retreated was the Zhao country at Chishui Pass. However, Chishui Pass was mainly made up of Navy soldiers. It was not suitable for fighting on land. Even if they rushed over, it would be useless. The Chun country and the Zhao country were far away, so there was no definite news. Liao Chen read all the information in the book and said, Gongsun, you deployed a large number of soldiers at the north and east gates. These 2 gates are the closest to us. The south gate is guarded by the Han family. There are 30,000 cavalrymen and 20,000 infantrymen. I don't know which gate they will be transferred to. The west gate is the weakest, but it is too far from us. Gu Jiao said, it's almost time. Let's go to the pass and meet with the crown princess. Due to the urgency of time, Shang Guanyin and the imperial army did not enter Chuyang City to rest. After they finished fighting the Liang army, they rested for a few hours and then began to march to Pucheng. Gu Jiao changed into red battle clothes and black armor. She also went out to put on helmets and armor for the Black Wind cavalry. When she turned around, Liao Chun had also put on his battle armor. Gu Jiao was slightly stunned. This general in helmet and armor, was he still the handsome monk in her memory who loved to eat meat and drink? The laziness and demonic charm of the past had faded away, and his entire body was emitting a murderous aura of a powerful army. What are you looking at? Liao Chen asked indifferently. Gu Jiao curled her lips. I'm not used to you suddenly being serious. Liao Chen was speechless. Liao Chen mounted his horse and led the troops out of the city. Gu Jiao also took 10,000 Black Wind cavalry. Most of them were soldiers of the garrison camp. They had been longing for this battle for a long time. After the destruction of the Xinyuan family, Wan Rinchong, Li Shan, and Zhao Dengfeng finally had another chance to fight side by side. The 3 of them rode on horseback. They no longer looked high-spirited in their early 20s. Their faces were stained with the vicissitudes of life. but the conviction in their bones had never diminished or wavered. Zhao Dengfeng sneered. Old Shi is not here. This time, we will fight back together with his share. Wan Rinchong, Li Shun, Zhao Dengfeng, and Shi Zhongkue were the four fierce generals of the Black Wind Battalion. Shi Zhongkue died in battle more than 10 years ago. Thinking of Old Shi, Wan Rinchong, and Li Shun's eyes turned cold. Old Shi's death had nothing to do with Jin. This time, they were going to settle the old and new accounts together. For Old Shi, for the general, for the seventh young master. The three of them looked determined and chased after him, without hesitation. Gu Jiao waited for Shang Wanyan's carriage on the official road outside the pass. She patted the Black Wind King and stepped into the carriage. Shang Wanyan's eyes were red. It seemed that she had cried because she was worried about Shang Wanqing. But she had calmed down and was able to talk to Gu Jiao calmly. She took Gu Jiao's hand and let Gu Jiao sit down beside her. Jiao, what happened? Gu Jiao looked back. Shang Wanyan said, without changing her expression, General Xiao, you also get on the horse. I have something to discuss with you and Commander Xiao. Marquis Xianping also got on the carriage. Gu Jiao told them about the Ghost Mountain. There were 3 main points, Shang Wanqing, Xian Yuanqi, and the 1,000 lives in the tunnel. Gu Jiao only mentioned Shang Wanqing's situation in the letter. Shang Wanyan never expected that Xian Yuanqi was involved. Second uncle is still alive. He is still alive. He has a son. Shang Wanyan didn't know about the Shadow Division. She thought that Xian Yuanqi really died that year. He is the master of Jingkong, Gu Jiao said. So in Jingkong, he is also a child of the Xian Yuan family. Although Shang Wanyan had doubts for a long time, she was not sure. Where is Zhang? Gu Jiao said. He first set off with 20,000 troops and some of the city supplies. Shang Wanyan whispered, Second uncle is still in danger, right? Gu Jiao nodded regretfully. Yes. Gong Sun Yu. Shang Wanyan coldly clenched her fists. Marquis Xianping, who had been silent, suddenly opened his mouth. I have 2 doubts. First, where did old Gu go? Second, why did Qing'er go to Ghost Mountain? Shang Wanyan, didn't you say that he is staying in the village outside Qingdu? Shang Wanyan opened her mouth. Marquis Xianping raised his hand and made a stop gesture. Okay, no need to say any more. This Marquis knows. The two looked at him with a dumbfounded face. What do you know? Marquis Xianping couldn't hide his emotions and said, Father and son are connected by heart. He must have come to find this Marquis. What a filial son he is to look for his father for thousands of miles. Gu Jiao, Shang Wanyan, Wang Man beat the gong to withdraw his troops at dawn and was on his way. Mu Qingchen was also under his command. While waiting for the two of them, Marquis Xianping and Shang Wanyan quickly understood the deployment of the Jin army and drew up a preliminary battle plan. Gu Jiao's Black Wind Cavalry and Liao Chen's Shadow Division went to attack the 30,000 Black Wind Cavalry of the Han family. The battle location was at the South Gate. Marquis Xianping led 50,000 infantry and archers to attack the 80,000 Jin army at the North Gate. Wang Man led 30,000 troops to the East Gate to fight the 40,000 Jin army. Finally, Chang Wei led 30,000 troops to the West Gate of Pucheng to fight the 20,000 Jin army. The rest of the troops stayed in Xuyang City to prevent the Liang army from counterattacking and the Jin army from being defeated. Digression. It's the end of the month. It's time to clear the tickets. Let's see if there are any tickets left. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-1underscore8964-282/10543-1135. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile version website. MZHHBQG. Com. Chapter 869. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. In October, the border was cold and bleak. After making all the battle plans, Shang Guanyen stayed in place to wait for Wang Man's army. Gu Jiao and Marquis Xianping led the troops first. Just as the two of them got on their respective war horses, a mighty and majestic figure galloped toward them, full of vigor. Hey, you two are not loyal. Go out to fight. You left me alone in the wounded barracks. You're not kind. It was Tang Yueshan. You're injured, Gu Jiao said. Tang Yueshan angrily retorted. Is that an injury? It's just a mosquito bite. Gu Jiao looked at him with a dark face. Little henchman, pay attention to your tone, or I'll give you an injection. Tang Yueshan coughed softly and said, It's fine now that the poison is detoxified. I don't care, I want to go. He was born to be a warlike person. He wouldn't stay idle in the wounded barracks. Then you follow me, Marquis Xianping said. Tang Yueshan was a little hesitant and disdainful. You already have Chang Jing. Why do you need me? I can't use my full strength as the Grand Marshal if I'm with you. His reins were pulled away by Marquis Xianping. Pu City, City Lord's Mansion. Yu Liuyi went to the yard early in the morning to play with her new Black Brave mount. The Black Brave mount was not all black. For example, the Lord's was dark brown, and hers was chestnut. She rode on her new mount and happily circled around the City Lord's Mansion. Seeing Gong Sun Yu returning from the barracks with Zhu Zhangquang and several generals, she jumped off the horse with a smile. Lord. Gong Sun Yu nodded slightly. She was a little girl, so Gong Sun Yu treated her more leniently than those rough men. He said, It's still early. Don't you want to sleep a little longer? No. I want to ride a horse. She said, mischievously. I heard that the Lord caught a few more prisoners. I wonder, can you give them to me? Gong Sun Yu generously said, After the interrogation, I'll give them to you. Yu Liuyi smiled and said, That's great. Another newbie is testing the mechanism. Zhu Zhangquang secretly shuddered. Looking at this girl's innocent smile, he thought that she was an innocent and harmless little girl, but he had seen her use mechanisms to torture people to death. She was a little devil. Thinking of something, Yu Liuyi stomped her feet and snorted. Why isn't Jie Xingzhou back yet? A mere 300 ghostly soldiers had been tormented for so long. How useless. My lord, I'll go help him. Okay. Gong Sun Yu agreed. Yu Liuyi laughed heartily and mounted her horse. Just as she was about to gallop out of the estate, a guard suddenly rushed in with a hurried expression. He saluted Gong Sun Yu and said, Reporting to the Grand General. Our spies have discovered the movements of the Yan army on the official road. A large number of cavalries are heading towards Puqing City. Without waiting for Gong Sun Yu to speak, Yu Liuyi chuckled. Yan army? Were they really that bold? He had just killed their great general Xin Yuan yesterday, and now he dared to come to their doorstep for revenge. You're really not afraid of death? Gong Sun Yu calmly asked, How many soldiers do you have? About 30,000. The guard replied. Yu Liuyi scoffed. It's just 30,000 cavalries, my lord. Give me 20,000 men, and I'll go out of the city and kill them all. Gong Sun Yu was not in a hurry to agree. Instead, he asked the guard, Are they the Black Wind cavalry of the Xin Yuan family? It seems so. The guard said, They're carrying the flying eagle flag of the Xin Yuan family. Yu Liuyi excitedly said, My lord, I'll go cut down their flying eagle flag. Gong Sun Yu calmly said, There's no need for the Jin army to do such a thing. The Han family has always wanted to compete with the Black Wind cavalry. Then, let the Han family prove it to me. Gu Jiao and Liao Chen's 30,000 men took a day to reach the small forest near Puqing City. Gu Jiao said, We'll rest here for a night and attack the city at dawn. Okay. Liao Chen felt that it was feasible. Gu Jiao was not worried that their whereabouts would be exposed and they would be attacked by the Jin army. Based on her understanding of Gong Sun Yu probably did not care about these 30,000 men. He wanted to keep the Jin army to deal with the main force of the Yan kingdom. Gong Sun Yu would probably let the Han family deal with them. In order to maintain the strongest force, the Han family would not choose to attack at night. Gu Jiao sat on the ground with her back against a tree. She hugged the red tasseled spear and closed her eyes. She said, "They'll wait for us in the city." The tree was wide enough for two people to sit together without feeling crowded. Liao Chen sat beside her. He glanced at her and said, "I've always had a question in my mind." "What question?" Gu Jiao asked. Liao Chen whispered, "Do you have any relationship with the Xianyuan family?" Gu Jiao said, "Why do you ask?" Liao Chen looked at the branches above his head and said, "My uncle's red tasseled spear is in your hands. I know it's a coincidence, but I feel like it's destined to be yours." Gu Jiao was silent. Liao Chen said, "The armor you're wearing belongs to the First Lord of Shadows. The armor was recast from my uncle's armor, but that set of armor was originally given to him by the First Lord of Shadows. So my profound armor has such a history." There was something else Liao Chen didn't say. The armor and armor were inseparable. Now that they were finally combined, it was as if they had found their true master. A gentle breeze blew past. Liao Chen turned to look at her again. He found that she had fallen asleep with a red tasseled spear in her arms. The Black Wind King quietly came over. He bit off a warm cloak from the carriage and gently placed it on Gu Jiao. Liao Chen closed his eyes in envy. In a flash, he felt something extra on his body. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the Black Wind King had also covered him with something with his mouth. It was a broken sack. Liao Chen was speechless. The next day, at 7 in the morning, the sky was overcast. There was an invisible chill in the haze. The Black Wind Cavalry and the Shadow Division were at the city gates. Pu City was not as easy to defend and difficult to attack as Chuyang City. There were two reasons for this. First, it had been in disrepair for a long time. The original city lord had embezzled the money allocated to him, causing it to be unable to be repaired. Second, when the Jin army attacked Pu City not long ago, they had damaged the city gates once. After the Jin army entered the city, they enslaved many strong men to repair the city gates. Unfortunately, the south gate had not been repaired. Gu Jiao and Liao Chen rode at the front of the 30,000 soldiers. They looked up at the familiar figures on the city gates. It really is the Han family. She had guessed correctly. She introduced them to Liao Chen. That silver-haired man is Han Fifth Master. Beside him is Han Lei, Han Ye's father. Liao Chen looked at them. They also looked at Liao Chen. Han Lei said thoughtfully, "I know that youth. He's the one who took Xiao Liulong's identity. He was adopted by Duke Anghua and became the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. But who is the person beside him? I don't think I've seen him before." Han Ci did not speak. He looked at Liao Chen without blinking. Liao Chen also looked at him without dodging. Han Lei looked at Han Ci and asked, "Fifth brother, do you know him?" Han Ci said, "I don't know him, but I think I've seen those eyes somewhere before." Gu Jiao raised the red tasseled spear in her hand and pointed it in the direction of the city gates. She said arrogantly, "Bastard of the Han family, do you dare to come out of the city and fight with your grandfather?" Han Lei was so angry that his mouth twitched. In the next moment, the city gates opened. A young man in silver armor rushed out with a long sword in his hand. Gu Jiao looked at him. Han Yi." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. She put the red tasseled spear on her shoulder and looked at him calmly. "Your hamstring is fixed? You can't only fight on horseback?" Han Yi was angry at the mention of this. He had suffered so much and endured so much pain before he could stand up again. It was all Xiao Liulong's fault. He wanted to kill him and avenge himself, and also avenge second uncle. Han Lei frowned. "Yi, Why did you open the gates? Fifth Grandfather Han said calmly, "We can't defend it anyway. Why don't we go out and fight?" The valiant Dark Cavalry's strength was offense. Only under the city gates could they unleash their full power. Moreover, he had been waiting for this day for a long time. He always wanted to know if the valiant Dark Cavalry he trained could defeat the Xianyuan family's Dark Wind Cavalry. An endless stream of valiant Dark Cavalry rushed out of the city gates and fought with the Dark Wind Cavalry and the Shadow Tribe. The battle came faster and fiercer than expected. In the blink of an eye, dozens of cavalry fell. Some were on their own side, and some were on the other side. Han Ye's target was Gu Jiao. "Why didn't that Gu Changqing come with you? You don't deserve to fight with him." "Nonsense. Watch out for my sword." Han Ye swung his sword at Gu Jiao's head. Gu Jiao raised her red-tasseled spear to block the attack. The spear and sword clashed, and Han Ye's murderous aura filled the air. Han Ye was shocked. The last time they fought, this kid was clearly no match for him. Why was it that after a dozen moves, this kid's face was not red, nor was he panting? It seemed like he was very relaxed. Whoosh! Gu Jiao killed the cavalry with a single stab. Then, she stabbed her spear at Han Ye's waist. The angle was very tricky. It could not be blocked or deflected. Han Ye gritted his teeth and used his qinggong to leap up, perfectly dodging the attack. Then he swooped down from above Gu Jiao's head and stabbed his sword at Gu Jiao's Baihui acupoint. "Are you trying to make me jump up? Dream on." Gu Jiao stared at him. Then she suddenly leaned back. Han Ye's spear stabbed Gu Jiao's armor. However, it did not pierce through. Han Ye's eyes flashed. Gu Jiao's spear slashed at his thigh. Han Ye did not understand why this kid's armor was so hard. It was too late for him to retreat. Seeing that one of Han Ye's thighs was about to be cut off by Gu Jiao, Fifth Grandfather Han suddenly rode his black demon horse and quickly arrived behind the two. He used his sword to deflect Gu Jiao's spear. 2 against 1, Gu Jiao was pincered. Han Ye said, "You attack her arms. I'll kill her horse." As soon as he finished speaking, Liao Chen flew over and forced Fifth Grandfather Han off his black demon horse. Fifth Grandfather Han stabilized himself with a flip. He turned around and looked in disbelief at the man who forced him off his horse. "Who are you? Tell me your name." Liao Chen's killing intent was like a knife. Xianyuan Zheng of the 7 Xianyuan sons. Digression. It's really the end of the month. Don't waste your monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_89642826/1054295557. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. mzhhbqg.com. Chapter 870. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. As soon as he said that, everyone seemed to feel the powerful spirit of Xianyuan. The morale of the soldiers on the battlefield was split in half. The morale of the Black Wind Cavalry and the Dark Shadow Division was rising. The Black Wind Cavalry of the Han clan seemed to feel the suppression from the spirit of Xianyuan. Puching was the burial ground of the Xianyuan army. Many years ago, countless Xianyuan soldiers were buried here. Some died in battle, while others died in vain. Now that the 7 Xianyuan sons had returned, the souls of the heroes in the world seemed to have been summoned. A gust of wind blew past, and the house of Han's cavalry felt a chill run down their spines. Most of them forgot to think about how many sons the Xianyuan family had. Only fifth grandfather reacted. He said coldly, "The Xianyuan family has 6 sons. Since when did they have 7? You're obviously pretending to be one of them. Don't try to persuade a stubborn person, because they won't listen." Liao Chen didn't waste time with fifth grandfather Han. He sheathed his sword and pulled out the spear on his back. The action of holding the gun and the domineering move that was completed in one go shocked fifth master Han once again. Fifth grandfather Han looked at him solemnly. "This is traitor. Die." Liao Chen's spear came down. Fifth grandfather Han blocked it with his sword, but half his body went numb. His feet sank into the ground with a bang. It was obvious how powerful the spear was. "Black Demon Horse!" Fifth Master Han shouted, and the Black Demon Horse charged towards Liao Chen. Liao Chen's target was not the Black Demon Horse, but he could not allow himself to be knocked away. Just as he was about to hit the Black Demon Horse with his palm, the Black Wind King came galloping over and mercilessly collided with the Black Demon Horse. The young and healthy Dark Demon Horse was actually knocked aside by a 16-year-old horse. Fifth grandfather Han couldn't believe it. Even more incredulous was Han Yi, who was fighting Gu Jiao not far away. This beast he had raised it for so many years, but it turned around and sought refuge with someone else. What an ingrate! If he had known earlier, he would not have listened to Chu Nan and left it to fend for itself. He should have caught it back. Han Yi was kicked violently and fell heavily to the ground. Gu Jiao held the red tasseled spear and stood in front of him. She looked down at him and said, "Don't get distracted. You might die." Han Yi clutched his aching chest and stood up. His eyes were like torches as he looked at Gu Jiao. Did you use some kind of evil method to increase your power? If you can't beat me, just say so." Gu Jiao carried the long spear on her shoulder. This action was exactly the same as Marquis Xian Ping carrying his broadsword. She even shot off a Han family cavalryman's helmet and stepped on it with one foot. "Didn't your fifth uncle just use drugs? But look, did he win?" Han Yi turned to look at his fifth uncle. He saw the Han family's once-in-a-century expert being defeated by someone who called himself one of the 7 sons of Xianyuan. After being sent flying again, fifth grandfather Han fell heavily to the ground and spat out a mouthful of black blood. How can this be? This was his fifth uncle. The survivors who survived the purple grass poison possessed terrifying inner strength and an immortal body that could be said to be immune to pain. Immortal body was an exaggeration, but he was more resistant to injury than normal people. No matter how serious the injury was, it could be healed the next day. This time it must be the same. Just as the thought flashed through his mind, Liao Chen's palm shattered his dantian. Liao Chen had countless chances to kill him, but he did not. Instead, Liao Chen took him down one move at a time. Yes, the purple grass poison could heal a person's body, but could it restore a warrior's fighting spirit? When fifth grandfather Han's last shred of fighting spirit collapsed, he spat out blood and lay on the blood-stained ground. It wasn't that he'd run out of energy, but that he could feel the huge gap between him and Liao Chen. He was not a martial arts genius to begin with. It was only because he had been poisoned by the purple grass poison that he had such astonishing strength. Liao Chen was different. He was really strong. Fifth grandfather Han finally accepted his fate. He closed his eyes and accepted his fate. Liao Chen's spear pressed against his forehead, but did not stab him. "You let my sixth brother go. Consider this life of mine repaying you in his stead." With that, Liao Chen put away his spear and turned to leave. Fifth grandfather Han suddenly opened his eyes and looked weakly at Liao Chen's departing figure. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Is sixth grandfather still alive?" Liao Chen did not answer. He mounted his horse and said to Gu Jiao, who was fighting Han Yi, "I'm going to kill Gong Sun Yu. I'll leave this to you." Gu Jiao shot Han Yi and knocked him down. Go. Liao Chen led dozens of Dark Shadow Division fighters into the city gates. He rode his horse, while the others used their lightness techniques. After entering the city, they split up and disappeared with a whoosh. A large group attracted attention and could easily be surrounded by the Gene army. It was much more secretive when they split up. They would meet up at the governor's mansion later. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the city, a child's scream came from the top of the city gate tower. He looked up. A 5-year-old boy was falling from the top of the city gate tower. His face was full of fear. He flew up and caught the boy in midair. Now is the time. Murderous hidden weapons rained down from the top of the city gate tower. The boy was just bait. If he didn't fall for it, the boy would fall to his death for nothing. If he fell for it, he would be shot to death with the boy. What a vicious plan. Liao Chun flicked his sleeves and pulled out his sword, stabbing it into the tower. He stepped on the blade of the sword, and under the great force, his body flew forward like an arrow released from a bow. The rain of hidden weapons clanged against the sword and also hit the hard bluestone floor. His horse was also injured and couldn't continue to fight. He landed on one knee at the corner of the street with the boy in his arms. "Are you okay?" The boy was so scared that he didn't even know how to cry. He turned to look at the towering city gate tower with a cold face. On the city gate tower, a graceful girl in pink was looking at him with a smile. "You're the 7 sons of Xianyuan? Xianyuan Qi, who was killed by the Lord, is your father? How interesting. You actually dodged my flying flower hidden weapons." Interesting? Throwing an innocent child down from the city gate tower was left out of her mouth, so casually. Liao Chun turned his head and put the boy in a safe place. He looked at the top of the city gate tower with a murderous look. It was impossible to climb such a high distance with lightness techniques. However, he had just stabbed his sword so he could borrow some strength. "Let's try." Liao Chun pulled out the long spear behind his back and stabbed it into the long sword. With 2 points to borrow strength, he shouldn't miss. Liao Chun flew up. "No way. Climbing the city gate tower with your bare hands. Humph, how confident are you in your lightness techniques?" Yu Liui didn't attack. She just looked at Liao Chun and waited for him to fall. Unexpectedly, Liao Chun really came up. Yu Liui widened her eyes in disbelief. Looking at the man who flew in front of her, she was so shocked that she forgot to attack. Bang! A powerful sword energy came from behind Yu Liui. Liao Chen's eyes flashed. He slapped the wall of the city gate tower with his palm and supported his body upside down to avoid the attack. The next moment, 4 or 5 more powerful sword energies came at Liao Chun. This was a blatant sneak attack. Liao Chen's expression changed. He couldn't dodge. He was blasted off the city gate tower by the sharp sword energy. His whole body was numb for a moment. He couldn't use his internal energy and lightness techniques. Was he going to fall to his death? He looked at the grayish-blue sky. White clouds had appeared at some point. He saw his father's gentle and kind smile. He hadn't avenged his father. Was he going to die in vain? At the critical moment, a figure in a dark blue Taoist robe soared into the air from behind. The figure grabbed his waist, which was clad in armor, and brought him down slowly. His toes touched the ground, and his whole body sank. Then he turned his head to look at the man who had appeared out of thin air. His eyes flashed fiercely. Ox nose. Taoist Qing Feng ignored him. He only raised his head and looked at the 5 swordsmen on the city gate tower with cold eyes. He said lightly, "His life is mine." The aces of the sword hut all frowned. That boy was already difficult to deal with. Why was there another one? Yu Liui's almond eyes widened. This stinking Taoist seems very strong. Capture him. I want both of them. I want to use them to test medicine. The 5 aces of the sword hut flew down from the city gate tower. Taoist Qing Feng looked at the pale Liao Chun and said, "You're injured." Liao Chun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "It's nothing. Why are you here?" Taoist Qing Feng said, "I should be the one asking you this. But before you answer me, I have another question." Liao Chen didn't argue with Liao Chen on account of Liao Chen's kindness. Go on. Taoist Qing Feng held a bag of dried buns in his hand. He asked seriously, is this Tsangshua Pass? Liao Chen was speechless. Tsangshua Pass was in the northeast. This was the northwest. Digression, the third watch is here. Love Mud Cutie, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_8964-282/1054-24375. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 871. The newest chapter of the book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. Liao Chen's expression was indescribable. Did this guy get lost again? How did he get lost from the northeast to the northwest? Liao Chen suppressed the urge to twitch his mouth and said calmly, this isn't Tsangshua Pass. Speaking of which, did the Feng family swap missions with Wang Su to escort the emperor's grandson to the Qin kingdom for peace? Taoist Qing Feng said, Feng Wuxiu wanted to eat lamb buns, so I went to buy them for him. I told him not to run around and to follow Prince Changsun. I think he got lost with Prince Changsun and the others. Liao Chen looked at the 3 buns that had dried to stone in the bamboo bag and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. You're the one who got lost, right? How long have you been lost? Can't you ask for directions? Well, this guy never asked for directions. He didn't think he was lost at all. As long as I don't ask, I'm not lost. Having a bad sense of direction isn't scary, but it's scary to think you're a road hog. Liao Chen shook his head and sighed. How can anyone be like you? Are you living in heaven? Taoist Qing Feng didn't hear clearly and looked at him strangely. What did you say? Liao Chen's peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly. His murderous aura faded and he smiled evilly like a demonic monk. I said you're a natural-born immortal. It must be hard for you to come down. Taoist Qing Feng didn't understand, but he didn't care. He looked at the people across from him and asked, why do these people want to kill you? And why are you dressed like this? Liao Chen said lightly, when 2 countries are at war, I'll fight. They're the Jin army. Jin army? Taoist Qing Feng paused and said seriously, okay, I'll kill them first. Then I'll take your life myself. Liao Chen smiled. Okay. The two seemed to have talked a lot, but in reality, not much time had passed. The 5 swordsmen of the Sword Hut had been observing their breath and internal energy to determine their martial arts and weaknesses. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything. Attack together, the leading swordsman said. The 5 of them wielded long swords and charged at Taoist Qing Feng and Liao Chen. Taoist Qing Feng put the dried buns on the stone lion beside him. He was not used to using weapons, so he started to fight with them with his bare hands. Liao Chen didn't use any weapons either. The swordsman thought that Liao Chen had lost his weapon and suffered internal injuries, so his strength would be greatly reduced. Who would have thought that when Liao Chen attacked, the swordsman would feel great pressure? Liao Chen said coldly, that was just a sneak attack. Do you really think you can beat me fair and square? As soon as he finished speaking, he slammed his palm down and sent the 2 swordsmen flying. Taoist Qing Feng frowned. Is this guy's kung fu so powerful? The other 3 saw that Liao Chen was not easy to deal with, so they targeted Taoist Qing Feng, thinking that it would be easier. Taoist Master Qing Feng leaped into the air and landed on the ground. He slammed his palm on the ground and shouted, Leave. Can. Break. With him as the center, a powerful internal force attacked the two swordsmen on his left and right. Li was the east, and Ken was the west. The two swordsmen had unknowingly walked into his formation. It was almost the same situation as 5th Master Han and Gu Chongqing. The difference was that the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander was a competition. So he didn't kill them. This time, he was using his true strength. The two swordsmen were sent crashing into the pillars on both sides. The pillars collapsed, and the two swordsmen fell heavily to the ground. Even their weapons flew to the side. Cultivators did not kill, but he was a citizen of the Yen Kingdom first, and then a Taoist of Baiyun Temple. Everyone was responsible for the rise and fall of the country. Close. Open. Break. Taoist Master Qing Feng slammed his palm down again. Liao Chen's expression changed, and he leaped onto the roof. The other two swordsmen were not so lucky. They were hit by Taoist Master Qing Feng again, and their dantians were destroyed. They died on the spot. Liao Chun jumped lightly and landed steadily in front of Taoist Master Qing Feng. He said with a faint smile, "Taoist Master Qing Feng, your strength is very surprising." Taoist Master Qing Feng said expressionlessly, "When I kill you, I'll be even more surprised." Then he slammed his palm in Liao Chen's direction. Liao Chen's eyes flashed. He raised his fist and punched in Taoist Master Qing Feng's direction. Their fists and palms passed each other in the air, hitting the sneak attackers behind each other at the same time. They were the two swordsmen who had been sent flying by Liao Chun. Now that they were hit again, no matter how strong they were, they couldn't take it anymore. Their legs gave way, and they died. Taoist Master Qing Feng looked coldly at Liao Chun. Next, before he could finish, Liao Chun suddenly stepped forward. His left arm touched Taoist Master Qing Feng's waist, and he pushed Taoist Master Qing Feng behind him. His other palm slammed into the last swordsman's chest. Now, 5 swordsmen were dead. On the tower, Yu Liuyi stomped her feet in exasperation. Useless. You can't even defeat a Taoist and Xin Yuanzi. What's the use of having you? I told you to send your sword hut's protectors over. What are these disciples trying to do? These people weren't ordinary disciples. They were the most talented swordsmen in the sword hut. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been called to Puching by Elder Lu. They could only blame Liao Chun and Taoist Master Qing Feng for being too strong. After Liao Chun killed the last person, he immediately let go of someone's waist and used his Qing Gong to leap onto the roof. Taoist Master Qing Feng frowned. "You want to escape?" Liao Chun curled his lips and said lightly, "I'll go kill someone first. After I'm done, I'll deal with you and me. By the way, I'll leave that child to you." With that, he pointed at the alley and disappeared in a flash. Taoist Master Qing Feng looked at the child in the alley who was too scared to cry. He frowned, but in the end, he didn't chase after Liao Chun. He walked over and took the child's small hand. Outside the city gate, the Black Wind Cavalry and Shadow Division were fighting fiercely with the House of Han's Black Storm Cavalry. 5th Grandfather Han was helped to the side by his servants. He sat on the cold ground with his back against the city wall. He watched the House of Han's Black Storm Cavalry fall one by one. Suddenly, he felt powerless. Had all his years of perseverance been a mistake? Had all his efforts been wasted? Why couldn't they defeat the Black Wind Cavalry even though they were stronger? The House of Han's warhorses were stronger than the Black Wind Cavalry. Their tolerance for pain was also much higher. However, the Black Wind Cavalry had an unyielding will in their bones. They could suffer, they could die, but they would never retreat. He thought that with the strongest warhorse, he could train an unparalleled cavalry. Only now did he realize that being strong didn't equate to being powerful. The House of Han's Black Storm Cavalry might really lose. No, there was still the Black Demon Horse. There was still a chance. The Black Demon Horse was one of the few Black Storm Cavalry on the battlefield that wasn't affected. It was in the prime of its life and was young and strong. It wouldn't allow itself to lose to an old horse. It wanted to take back its position as the king of the horses. It launched its most powerful attack at the Black Wind King. With its speed and explosive power, the Black Wind King would definitely lose half of its life. The people around all broke out in cold sweat. Unfortunately, they were in the middle of a battle and couldn't rush over to save the Black Wind King. The Black Wind King panted slightly. It looked at the warhorse that was galloping towards it. It didn't seem to have any extra strength left to take the hit. Its body trembled and fell down weakly. Li Shun's expression changed. Black Wind King. The Black Demon Horse stepped over the Black Wind King and returned to its original position proudly and excitedly. It had defeated the old horse. It was the true king of warhorses. It raised its front hooves and declared its absolute dominance. At that moment, the Black Wind King, who had fallen to the ground, suddenly jumped up and bit the Black Demon Horse's neck. The Black Demon Horse howled in pain. It began to struggle with all its might, trying to shake off the Black Wind King. Unfortunately, the Black Wind King didn't let it go. It could only surrender or die. The Black Demon Horse finally used up its last bit of strength. It whimpered and knelt before the Black Wind King. Fifth Master Han closed his eyes in pain. The House of Han. They had lost. Han Yu was no match for Gu Jiao, so he called the Han family's death warriors to besiege her. Gu Jiao didn't hesitate at all, killing one person with a single spear strike. Han Yu was injured, so the Han family's guards escorted him away. Gu Jiao chuckled. You want to leave? Not so easy. Fifth Master Han allowed you to take him away because he wanted to spare Shin Chen's life. But who did Han Yi think he was? He was the Black Wind King who wanted to kill her. Gu Jiao raised her red-tasseled spear and mounted her horse. Boss, chase after it. At that moment, Yu Liuyi flew down and shot a round of hidden weapons at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao chuckled. You think I don't have hidden weapons? She took out a mechanism box and threw it at the densely packed hidden weapons. Master Lu had made a mechanism box for Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshun, and they both gave it to her. She hadn't tested the power of the two mechanism boxes yet. She first heard a light crisp sound, as if a silver needle had hit the mechanism box, followed by the sound of a wheel turning. In the next second, the mechanism box suddenly scattered, and the hidden weapons shot out like a fairy scattering flowers. Not only did they block all of Yu Liuyi's silver needles and darts, but they also shot down the Han family soldiers around her. Even Yu Liuyi herself was hit by an almost invisible silver needle. Yu Liuyi cried out in pain. The silver needle was poisonous, and Yu Liuyi's left shoulder and entire left arm instantly lost feeling. She held her left arm and fiercely looked at Gu Jiao. You dare hurt me, Gu Jiao arrogantly said. So what if I hurt you? I still want to kill you. Gu Jiao said. Of the four generals under Gong Sun Yu Liuyi was the most ruthless. 9 years later, she would be a very troublesome enemy. Gu Jiao wouldn't give her a chance to grow stronger. Gu Jiao stabbed her spear towards Yu Liuyi. This was one of the last two moves forced out by Xin Yuan Qi at Ghost Mountain. Even Xin Yuan Qi was forced to retreat, let alone Yu Liuyi. Yu Liuyi's stomach was cut. She was furious. Who are you? Gu Jiao said indifferently. Why do you care who I am? Yu Liuyi didn't want to die on the battlefield of the Han family. She gritted her teeth and threw out a black fire pearl, which exploded into a cloud of smoke. She took advantage of the chaos to escape. Gu Jiao looked at her back and didn't chase after her. You don't know that Puqing is surrounded on all sides, right? You're just a turtle in a jar if you escape into the city. The Han family's morale was already gone. Gu Jiao took the opportunity to lead the Shadow Division to the city wall. She cut down the Jin Kingdom's flag with her spear and put the Yen Kingdom's flag back on the towering city wall. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www ZHHBQG. com/89642_896/105407889. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. ZHHBQG.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.